Check one, check two, check one, check two. This is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance Network. Apologies about killing that last stream. There's just a bunch of people complaining about the sound, and I'd rather just start off fresh. So let me know if I'm coming in okay, if you can hear me. If not, well then we're just not going to do this live. I don't do very many live videos, but if it's not working, I'm just going to record it and post it later. But if you can hear me okay, give me a thumbs up. Comment, let me know. And for those who are tuning in, if you're tuning in late, fast forward to get caught up instead of just repeating the same thing over and over. Makes things a lot easier. So before I go any further, before I dive into what we're about to cover and recap the situation, I'm going to wait to hear a comment that says, I can hear you. Sounds good? Okay, loud and clear. Awesome. All right, so let's do this. Okay, so again, you guys know the drill. I've been researching the finders for the last year and a half and longer. We put out the documentary Who Will Find What the Finders Hide. If you haven't seen that, you want to check that out because it's intrinsic to this discussion and what we're about to get into. The finders, of course, are a cult accused of having connections to human trafficking of children, intelligence agencies. All of this is covered in Who Will Find What the Finders Hide. But in October 25th, randomly, the FBI posted on their Twitter account basically releasing new documents that some are new, some were previously seen by us researchers who've been in this, but there were new details in that finder's file, specifically the documents detailing that there was a clear cover-up, that at least somebody in the Washington Metro Police Department had written that clearly the that's clearly the finders were involved with intelligence agencies, and we found out through that document that not only did the CIA cover it up, but the Foreign Counterintelligence Agency, the FCIA, also helped cover it up. And so you can find all those at theconsciousresistance.com, which again is your home to get all of my content. I want to remind you guys to do that. If you haven't visited theconsciousresistance.com, check it out. We just redesigned the website. Got a nice little spacey background. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms. You can get plugged in. Of course, if you want to get a free ounce of Kratom and help support my work, check that out. But yeah, come here and scroll through the site if you guys will. It looks nice and pretty now. We did some redesigning. We also got the Conscious Resistance Network right here, guys. For those who are unaware, this is our social network on our own website. You don't have to use Facebook. You don't have to use things like that. You can support our efforts and join our site directly. And by the way, the very first place that I announced that my book was now available for sale was on the Conscious Resistance Network. Obviously, not many people saw it, and I still posted it on YouTube and Facebook, but I'm starting to use it more frequently. And once I completely delete Facebook and YouTube, this will be the only place where you can find my work. Of course, you can find all our videos, our podcasts, my books. You can find the documentaries and all the good stuff there. So if you are not plugged in, you need to get plugged in and bookmark theconsciousresistance.com. And one other little side note before we dive into this, and the next 30 to 40 minutes is all finders. I want to remind you guys again, if you have been to our YouTube channel but you've never actually watched our little channel trailer, perhaps you should do so because it explains what the Conscious Resistance is. And me, Derrick Broze, I'm the one who created this website. I'm the main contributor, but you guys may have also noticed recently Johan from Anarchy Freedom in India. He's contributing his videos now. No, I did not suddenly develop an Indian accent. That's Johan. We also have Isaac, who is the Lucid Truth. We got Danilo, who does Peaceful Anarchism, and Regan Keeley, she periodically contributes. So it is a network of contributors who contribute their specific message and ideas. And we're always looking for more people who have poetry, vlogs, essays, interviews, articles to contribute to the website. You guys get what we're about. If you fit in with the general message and you want to keep waking people up, then reach out to me and we can get your content on the website if that's something you're interested in. So yeah, let me know if that's something that you guys want to do. And without any further ado, let's get into the finders documents. Again, these were just posted on the FBI's The Vault website. And shout out to John Brisson of We've Read the Documents. If you haven't seen We've Read the Documents, John is a researcher who's been involved with the finders before I was even involved. And we've been collaborating on a lot of different aspects of this research. And so he contacted me and said, hey, just so you know, there's new finders documents. And that's how it works. We're a part of a community that is friendly, people who do want to get this information out. Maybe there's a little healthy competition. I know John's going to be doing his deep dive tomorrow morning, and he knows that I'm going to be doing mine tonight. So we're both going to be putting out the information. Perhaps there's things that he might see that I won't see, and vice versa. But without any further ado, let's go on. Let's get right into this. The Finders document dump. So this one is 166 pages. I'm going to guess most of it's garbage, like this, where it just says, this is kind of the sheet, total deleted pages. They deleted 174 pages. They claim that this is a duplicate. So that's just FBI state speak right there. Duplicate, and right here, these are the exemptions, B3, B6, B7C. We can go through the exemption sheets and find out why exactly these exempted that, but we're not going to focus on that today. We're going to see if there's anything new that we haven't previously seen in the Finders documents. And I will say, John did tell me that he saw at least one or two new things. So we're going to go through this, and I will try not to say redacted 100,000 times, because I know that I've seen the comments, and I do read the comments, and I'm sure it gets annoying, redacted. So we'll just shorten that up. This is coming from the Washington Metropolitan Field Office, which is the FBI field office, as well as, we had the Washington Metro Police Department based in D.C. Finders Group, sexual exploitation of children, obstruction of justice. Attached to this memo are copies of materials relating to the caption group provided to a writer on November 8th, 93 by Senior Special Agent, United States Customs Service. That's either going to be that's going to be Ramon Martinez, who, of course, you guys will remember is the customs agent who went on the walkthrough of the Finders warehouse, and he is the one who wrote about, he wrote about naked pictures of children, instructions on buying children. He wrote about a lot of these different points, and so this is a memo from him to the Washington Metro Field Office. The information is described as listed below. Copy of Finders briefing bullets prepared by Special Agent someone for Commissioner, U.S. Customs briefing book. Copy of Special Agent memo to file dated February 7th, 1987, which is when the first investigation began, when the kids were seen in Tallahassee, Florida, in the van with the men who were well-dressed. Copy of Nexus report prepared by U.S. Customs. Copies of something redacted from February 7th and April 13th. Memos with names removed, together with a finder's chronology provided to the U.S. Customs by a Sergeant somebody of the Tallahassee, Florida Police Department. I'm going to guess this is Sergeant John Stitcher, who did end up dead, by the way. He died within a couple of years of this investigation, and he's one of the people who said within the Tallahassee, Florida Police Department that there was a cover-up going on. And I don't think I'm confusing that. I'm pretty sure John Stitcher worked for the Tallahassee Police Department, not the Metro Police Department. But if I confuse that, apologies. Copies of the Tallahassee Police Department records containing the blank and subsequent Finders Group's investigation. Copy of U.S. Customs Tallahassee case file. Copy of U.S. Customs Reston case file. Copy of a magazine article titled In Search of the Finders. So that is what is going to be contained in here. And we have some summaries. Let me just kind of skim through this and see if this is anything new. As you can see, guys, lots of redactions here. So again, for the sake of those who are new to this, I'm not going to read every single aspect of this because much of this has been covered in detail. If you're new to the Finders, go back and watch my previous videos. We have a whole playlist on the YouTube channel. Of course, the Who Will Find What the Finders Hide documentary covers the vast majority of it. By the way, I will be making a part 2 of that documentary, probably not another hour, but maybe a 15, 20-minute sort of update. Now that we have these FBI files, there's more information. But let's see what we have here. Finders. On August 23, 1993, I was advised by agents from the Special Agent Charge Miami office that they had interviewed somebody per request of somebody else. They listened to this person reiterate the information he provided earlier. I'm going to guess again, this is Ramon Martinez of the Customs Agents. Upon departure, and there's a big blank sentence, regarding a group called the Finders, somebody inquired if the agents were aware of this case and suggested they make themselves knowledgeable of the details. Somebody provided no further information. At the time, I queried the name Finders and the Finders in the CPPU database and was able to locate a record under each title. These records revealed that investigation had occurred at the Tallahassee and D.C. A brief statement regarding the initiation of the case was included. Neither entry mentioned child pornography. I queried the case number in blank and determined that a case had been opened and closed by Special Agent somebody. That is probably Special Agent Harold, who was the superior to Ramon Martinez on February 12, 1987. And again, guys, you got to remember, Ramon Martinez, he went into the warehouse and he walked along the walkthrough of the warehouse as the Finders properties in D.C. because there was concerns that there was child trafficking going on, and thus, if there was potential trafficking across interstate lines, it became a customs a customs case. So that's why he was there in the first place, because there was already suspicions of trafficking of children across state lines and maybe even internationally. That's why Ramon Martinez was there. He documented everything he saw. And then, of course, the people around him claimed that he made the whole thing up. They made his life a living hell, and they ran him out of the customs agency, and eventually he retired. And he is, again, the same person that I tried to contact that for my documentary, who initially agreed to be interviewed by me and then backed off, and then since then has basically told me to fuck off and go away, otherwise he'll file charges on me. He's very scared to speak. It should be noted that Ramon Martinez is retired from the Customs Service. They're definitely talking about him. A copy of the CPU records and the blank record are attached as number 17. Inquiries regarding this matter with the Division Director, Smuggling Investigations Division, revealed that the Finders Institute was investigated by Special Agent Blank when he was assigned to what was then the RACDC. On September 3rd, 93, I spoke with Special Agent Blank, who is currently assigned Headquarters Internal Affairs. Blank was the agent who participated with the MPD during the initial stages of their investigation. And I'm going to guess, again, that's Ramon Martinez. He provided 2 memo-to-file reports, one dated February 7th and another dated April 13th. Copies of these memos are attached, and we've seen those memos. The February 7th one is his initial saying that he saw pornography. His April 13th, 87 memo is the memo where he says that he was told by somebody at the Washington Metro PD that the investigation had been shut down because it had become a CIA internal matter. Then we got this big redacted section. In initial establishment of the Child Pornography and Protection Unit, at the request of then Commissioner Von Raab, upon final staffing of the unit, he was transferred to the DC, where he was assigned to work, among other things, child pornography cases. Blank advised that the reason the Tallahassee Police Department had contacted Customs was due in part to a very redacted paragraph. Now think about that. That's an important statement. It said that somebody advised that the reason the TPD had contacted Customs was due in part to blank. And the reason is the one I just told you, that there were suspicions that there was child trafficking taking place across international and state lines. But they redact that whole section out. Stated that blank contacted Special Agent so-and-so, who was a duty agent, because the TPT was requesting assistance in contacting Washington, D.C. area law enforcement agencies that could help follow up on the leads that they had developed. Subsequently, Customs was able to assist in this matter by arranging contact between the TPD and the Metro PD. Special Agent stated that he originally got involved with the MPD in this matter because there were suspicions that blank, blank, blank said that when, and then more blank. This is obviously this is 30 years later, guys. This is 1987, 1993. Here we are in 2020, and they're still redacting these documents and the details about them. Somebody stated that he accompanied the MPD in the search of one location, while someone else accompanied MPD in the search of a second location. During the search of one location, no child pornography was located. At the second location, heavily redacted statements. It also should be noted that Special Agent Blank has retired, so this is just kind of repeating itself. Washington Field Office had been assigned to the case. Blank said that he was told that so-and-so made a walkthrough of one of the sites the day after the warrant was executed. Special Agent advised that after the search warrants were executed, he tried several times. This is Special Agent Ramon Martinez. We know this from other documents. He tried several times to contact Detective Jim Bradley of the Metro PD to attempt to review the documents. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to make sure you guys can see this pretty clear. Sorry if you couldn't see it that well before. So here we are right here. These attempts were unsuccessful until March 31st, 1987, when Martinez met with Sergeant John Stitcher. Okay, so I was wrong. John Stitcher is from the MPD, and this John Stitcher, he ended up dead. He was the one who told Ramon Martinez that the CIA had covered up. And you see they redacted this here, even though we already know this from other documents. They're idiots. We already know this. But it says, when Martinez met with Sergeant John Stitcher, MPD, who advised him of the alleged CIA involvement, it should be noted that Sergeant Stitcher is now deceased. At least they acknowledge, like, oh, by the way, this guy's dead. That's what we're dealing with, guys. Just going to pause for a moment. I want to make sure you guys can hear me okay. I'm going to check the comments because I can't see the comments when I'm reading and scrolling through. So I'm going to just come back here and check some of the comments. Thank you, John. Sorry, John, I didn't see you. John Stitcher did work for the DC MPD, as I just corrected myself. Ramon's superiors were Linwood Roundtree and possibly John Sullivan. I have a second Ramon ROI with a little more information. So John is in the comments, and he will be providing any corrections that I might have missed. Thank you, John, for that. I appreciate that. All right, we're going to continue on then, guys. We're going to continue with the look. We're looking at these new files that were released by the FBI. Again, shout out to John Brisson. If we read the documents, John's in the chat. Show him some love. Go subscribe to him. He is the one who provided these to me. And John, if you don't mind, go ahead and post that link so everybody can get their copy of these documents now that they're out there. And I do recommend everybody check out John's live stream in the morning. On September 14th, 1993, I spoke with somebody, Office of Congressional Affairs, and this is probably Charlie Rose, and I can't remember the other congresswoman or person who Ramon Martinez had contacted. This meeting was a result of Congressman Rose's questions to the commissioner about this matter. At the time, all available information regarding Customs involvement on this issue was provided to somebody. A copy of the memo stated September 9th, 1993, from Assistant Commissioner, Congressional Affairs, requesting this information is attached as number 19. On September 14th, 1993, I met with somebody from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Now, I'm going to just do a quick pause here, John, and you probably know this better than me, and I know there might be some listeners who in the chat who are aware of this. But if I'm correct, there have been shady people who themselves have been tied to potential trafficking who are working for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So I'm pretty sure we know this name. I just can't think of it at the moment. But and correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I'm sure there are people that we've come across, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, who seem to be kind of providing cover. You know, just the same way that the people involved in various escapades with exploited and missing children often are the same people that get put in positions regarding investigating human trafficking. You know, it's the whole fox guarding the hen house thing. Somebody advised me that he had been a MPD officer in 1987 and had participated in the execution of a search warrant at one of the locations where the finders resided. Somebody further stated that his function during the search warrant was to blank, and he stated that while the whole matter was bizarre, he did not notice any child pornography. Blank then provided me with some UPI news articles. UPI is, of course, the news service like Reuters and AP he had obtained from Nexus. None of these articles mentioned CIA involvement, I'm going to guess. The articles are attached as number 20. On September 16, 1993, Deputy Assistant Commissioner Enforcement requested me to develop more information pertaining to this matter. On September 16, 1993, I contacted Blank in Tallahassee. I was advised he had been contacted by Miami agents for any information regarding the finders. He stated that he had requested the TPD to provide any information they might have on the incident that occurred in 1987. The officer he spoke with provided him with all the police reports and a newspaper article pertaining to the subject. Then we got a big blank paragraph. Requested that somebody provide me with the same information as well as any customs reports. He advised that after the initial opening report, the investigation revealed no customs violation and the matter was closed. It should be noted that both the TPD police reports and the news articles reported that incident as being bizarre. At no time did either report mention child pornography or any other violation that would fall within customs jurisdiction, nor did either report mention any CIA involvement. The TPD report and the news article are attached as number 21. Now again, the Tallahassee Police Department documents, those have been available for at least a couple of years. There have been people who've been filing FOIA requests. I think the FBI claims that the finders documents are some of the most requested. But through the website Muckrock, for those who are unaware, muckrock.com is a website that journalists use to file open records requests, and they're publicly posted whenever they do get dumps. So you can go to muckrock.com and search finders, and you can see various files that have been released, including the Tallahassee Police Department report. So we already had that. Now, while they may be saying that neither report mentions anything about child pornography, it is the Tallahassee Police Department document that mentions that the children were checked out and at least two kids showed signs of sexual abuse, or what they were calling sexual abuse. Sure, there could be other potential reasons that one of the kid is shitting on himself because, you know, he's got some rectum damage, and the girl, her hymen was broken, and that could be sign of sexual abuse. You could explain it away, but the point is that the TPD document might not specifically mention child pornography, but it does mention that at least one person from the health department checked them out and found signs of sexual abuse. Of course, that's not mentioned in any of the final reports. On September 16th, 1993, I contacted ASAC and Baltimore office This person was the acting RAC on February 5th, 1987. They stated that from what he could remember the incident, he had cautioned someone about getting involved in the matter as he suspected that there were no custom violations at the time. So he cautioned Martinez probably. Blank stated, big blank paragraph. On September 16th, 1993, I contacted somebody regarding additional information about this matter. He stated that, and look at this gigantic blank paragraph, whoever they are stated, apparently we're not allowed to know it. September 16th, 1993, I contacted Special Agent Blank, FBI Washington Field Office. Blank was the FBI case agent who handled matters regarding child pornography. They stated that the Finders was a very bizarre communal group who got their name based on the fact that they could find any type of information that was requested of them. He stated that the MPD became very, and then another heavily redacted paragraph. She said that during that period of time, the subject of child pornography and child sex abuse was in the limelight of media attention because of the Meese report and the passing of the Child Protection Act. As a result, she stated that this case started a media frenzy. She also advised that it appeared to her that Blank and the MPD investigators were trying to something. And then the next sentence is redacted, but it concludes with, said that no evidence of child sexual abuse, child pornography, or kidnapping was obtained. In a memo dated March 9th, 1987, blank. So again, guys, I know these deep dives are not always going to be the most interesting thing. They're not always going to be like every single page is some new revelation. But this is what it takes. This is what researchers do. This is what people like John and I and others do. You go through the documents. You take them page by page. You don't just look for the juicy bits of nuggets that say, oh, look, here's a child was raped. Because you have to try to understand the context. You got to be able to put together who the players are. And once you understand all the documents, it's much easier to identify these people, even when they are redacted. Somebody advised that she interviewed every member of the Finders during her investigation. This might be Fiona, what is her name, John? You know who I'm talking about, the lady who helped cover it up. She said that the group was bizarre and abnormal cult that lived a different type of lifestyle. At no time did she uncover any evidence of any federal violations. She further stated that she had never heard about the State Department or CIA involvement and was never instructed by someone to discontinue her investigation. On September 17, 1993, I contacted Freedom of Information offices. I inquired as to whether there were any records of FOIA requests. This was met with negative results. On September 17, 1993, I contacted Special Agent in Charge in D.C. and requested that they provide me with the investigative case file regarding this matter. An examination of the case file revealed no mention of child pornography. September 17th, I contacted somebody, stated that from what he could remember, somebody tended to get himself involved in Martinez. This is again where they start saying, oh, Martinez has a habit of sticking his nose in places that it doesn't belong. And they basically just run him out. That he tended to get himself involved in matters involving children that were outside the jurisdiction of customs. As far as this matter is concerned, somebody stated that he did not show any, the kids did not show any custom, the case did not show any indication of a custom violation after his blank to discontinue the investigation. Somebody stated that he does not recall any mention of CIA involvement. September 17th, I interviewed Division's Director, Smuggling Investigations Division. He stated that he recalls the incident but does not remember any facts being sent to him. However, he did not deny receiving the facts. He stated that during the time, Customs Headquarters had no line authority over field offices and therefore he was not in a position to dictate what action was appropriate. He stated that he does not recall any conversations between himself and Martinez regarding this matter and certainly does not recall any discussion of CIA involvement. All right, so now we're moving into the Nexus files. Heading number 2, 13 of the 30 presumed members of a religious sect arrested amid allegations linking the church to sexual activity involving children have been released from custody, a judge said Saturday. Although many adults enjoy healthy friendships with teenagers, psychologists warned Friday that parents should be alert for signals of potential child sex abuse. I think these are basically listings of different headlines that were coming out at the time that this researcher found while doing the report on the Finders. The British branch of a religious cult under investigation in Argentina claims the organization is the target of persecution and said it is deplorable to link the group with child abuse, prostitution, begging, and kidnapping. John or anybody, do you guys know who they're talking about? British branch of a religious cult headquartered in Argentina or under investigation in Argentina. Argentine investigators will wait until next week to review pornographic material and question sect members arrested in a raid in which 268 children were taken into custody. Police searched several residences Wednesday and took about 300 children away from members, of the outlawed Children of God religious group, a cult accused of promoting indiscriminate sex. Yeah, for those who've researched, you've come across Children of God. Advice on design and decor, easy on the eyes. Again, these are just lists of documents. This is a random one that mentions finders keepers. It's unrelated, it would look like. Authorities dropped child abuse charges against 2 members of the Finders commune who were arrested last month when police found them with 6 hungry and dirty children. Police Lieutenant Roy Dickey said prosecutors and defense attorneys agreed to the dismissal late Tuesday, and Michael Howell and Doug Ammerman were released from jail. They did not find that the original probable cause was invalid, but upon further investigation, they found that the facts were different than they originally appeared. So they did not deny that the original probable cause was invalid, but that the facts were different, whatever that means. Howell and Ammerman were arrested February 4th in a park. We know this. This is all general information that we know about. Child abuse charges were dismissed Tuesday. Yes, the same thing, kind of repeating documents. Dickey said 4 of the children have been released to their parents, but he was unsure of the status of the 2 other children. 3 of the 6 children who belong to the Finders, a counterculture community, have been ordered to return to their parents, to their something. Shortly after Wednesday's order, Leon County Circuit Judge Victor Cawthon, the leader of the Finders, said the group was disbanding. Now remember, in the last document dump we got from the FBI, there's a clear summary in the Metro Police Department files that says whoever it was that was writing the report clearly advised the D.C. police that they should not listen to the Finders when they claim that they're disbanding, that's part of their M.O. To claim that they're going to disband and break apart, but really that they would be... they would be staying together, and they would continue to bullshit people and claim that they have broke apart. So, all right, we're going to check some of the comments here for a moment. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. If you have not liked this video, please give us a like. We got about 100 viewers right now. Let's get these likes up past 100. And if you're not subscribed, do subscribe. I appreciate that. Our channel is growing every day. We get more and more subscribers and more content creators. But we definitely we are continuing to face censorship from YouTube. I mean, my videos, you guys look at the numbers. We got 40,000 subscribers, and the numbers are extremely low. So we're trying to combat that. I'm going to continue to cover important topics. And yes, I am on vacation. I'm on the road, but there are still important stories to cover. And I have 2 more videos that I'm working on that will be coming out in the next day or 2. So please stay tuned to that. All right, I just checked out the comments. Looks like everything's going good. We're going to continue to go on. This is, of course, a deep dive into new Finders documents 2 of 2. Last time we looked into this, we were told there was only 1 of 1, and now the FBI has released more documents. So we're going to continue. We're looking at news headlines now. That these are just basic news headlines. This is nothing new that we haven't seen before. Let me just continue. So these are, again, you have to imagine that you're an officer, an agent within the FBI, and you've been tasked with investigating whether or not there was any truth to these claims. Because, again, the initial incident happened in 1987. Then in 1993, there was an investigation into the potential CIA involvement. Of course, they said, well, nothing to see here. There's no CIA involvement. And what you're looking at here are the reports and the documents that some FBI agent was searching for and was finding in their pursuit of investigation. Now, we all know that the investigation was covered up, that there were a lot of details that were ignored, and people straight up lied. I mean, come on, do you think that just because the FBI decides to investigate it, that all of a sudden the people involved in the original cover-up in 1987 were just going to speak out and admit to it? Of course not. Now, I will say this for those who haven't heard this name, Kristen Noth. If you can see right here where my mouse is, Kristen Noth. These are a name of a few of the members of the Finders. Kristen Noth, or sometimes Kristen K. Noth, she spells her name differently sometimes. She's one of the people who are still around, pretending to be a journalist. She claims to do reports for intelligence and things like that. She's just a journalist, but she's been involved in the Finders since the original incident back in 1987. And that's the important part. That's why we continue to dive into this. One of the reasons I thought this was interesting when I first started to research the Finders is because there's, in the conspiracy culture, you hear reference to the Finders, this and that, and people talk about, Ted Gunderson and things like that. But, there's so much evidence for this topic, and it's also completely ignored. And again, there are some people who were involved in the cover-up that are still alive and still around. That's what I think is most interesting to me, is that the people who helped cover this up are still out there, and we need to be able to expose that. We need to expose any of the people who might have been involved. And in the beginning, I wasn't really comfortable saying that there was clear evidence of trafficking, but there is clear evidence of involvement of trafficking and intelligence agencies, and all that shit was covered up. All right, guys, so I'm just going to look through here. There's nothing. This is just an article. It says Hallwell originally identified himself as Michael Houlihan, but was indicted as Hallwell. Prosecutor Fordham said Howell has refused to answer questions and frequently goes into a trance when questioned. We've had a lot of roadblocks into this investigation. There are still so many unanswered questions. It may all turn out to be really innocuous, but at this point, I'm just not comfortable saying this is all we're going to have. We don't feel we have enough of a picture to let them waltz out of here. And that was what one of the investigators was saying, one of the prosecutors, and eventually they did let them walk out, but those unanswered questions probably didn't get answered at any point. This is a report from Tallahassee. State officials told 5 women they will have to prove they are the mothers of the children. We all know that. Again, if you've read the articles, you've seen this. These aren't really anything new. The 6 children, dirty and hungry, were taken into the state care February 4th after the 2 adult companions were arrested. The group and the 5 women have been linked to the Finders, a Washington-based communal organization. All right, general news. And again, we're just looking at headlines. This is all in the FBI document. So whoever was doing this investigation just collected as many articles as they could and went through them. I don't know if that's a real investigation. I mean, we can do that as just internet sleuths, but you would figure if you have the FBI's actual files, then you would get to know more than just those of us who are looking from the outside. 5 women would have to prove conclusively they are the mothers. It's not that we necessarily disbelieve these people are the mothers, but we just need them to prove that. Anybody could just walk in here and claim to be the parents. The women will have a chance to claim the children in a juvenile court to continue in a juvenile court hearing scheduled for March 9th, when Circuit Court Judge Victor Calton will hold an adjudication hearing on HRS request for custody of the children. He could either give custody to the mothers to the HRS or postpone a ruling. 2 members of the Finders were arrested. Again, guys, I don't mean to bore you by just scrolling through this, but there's, if there's nothing new, we're just gonna keep going. Police Chief Maurice Turner, whose detectives have investigated the group since December, said the commune members posed, quote, a threat to themselves more than anyone else. And Finders spokesman, who wore a Ronald Reagan mask over the back of his head from the outset, said this was all a mix-up. Robert Terrell. This is the Robert Terrell that I interviewed, and we posted the full interview on my channel right here. For those who have never seen it, you can go back and see what he says and make up his mind if you think he's telling the truth or if he's full of shit. I'll let you guys decide. We're going to keep scrolling. These are just news reports here. Nothing new that I've seen. I know, John, you mentioned a couple of new things, but these ones look to be just rehashing the articles that were already available. Reports of Satanism surfaced when police seized pictures taken of a ceremony held on what appeared to be the Etlin, Virginia farm. A goat's head, goat skins, and a scrapbook titled The Execution of Henrietta and Igor was also confiscated. Some pictures showed 3 men wearing white robes dismembering 2 goats. Another picture showed at least 1 child showing a goat fetus to someone behind a camera. Terrell said the ceremony was held for the children, said it was just an educational experience so they could see the insides of the goats. Robes were worn to make an impression on the youngsters, he said, to bring home the seriousness of killing an animal that was slaughtered for its meat. Now, I will say that answer differs from what I've heard from some other interviews and from other statements where the Finders members say, oh, that the robes we were wearing were just to protect us from blood splatter. They weren't robes in some sort of ceremonial sense. They were robes for protecting us from blood splatter. But right here, Terrell says it was to make an impression on the youngsters. Former members of the group said game playing was the mainstay of their philosophy. And they say it was often difficult to determine if the group members were serious or they were acting out of fantasy. And that's the whole thing. Part of the whole MO here is to keep people playing games, and you send them on crazy missions and they don't really know if what they're doing has any point, and they might be playing small compartmentalized roles in in bigger pictures that they don't know about, because it's just a game, right? This is all just a game. We're just a bunch of carefree people trying to live free and homeschool, unschool our children. There's nothing to see here. We are perfectly good people, says one mother. Granted, we have an alternative lifestyle. We're different from Mr. and Miss America next door, but we love our children, and we're trying to lead a healthy, happy life, and we have this incredible barrage of attention and negativity towards us is really an awful feeling. And that could be true. A lot of people who live alternative lifestyles are attacked and criminalized in the U.S. and other places, but a lot of those people don't have connections to intelligence agencies. And now here's the name that has stuck out before. And John, we got to do an interview, man, because I'm going to check the comments in just a few moments. I know there's a delay on the YouTube, but Dr. Nauman Greenberg of Chicago, hired by the State Health and Rehabilitative Services Department, spent 4 hours with the children on Tuesday. Now, correct me, John, if I'm wrong, but Greenberg, he was the same doctor who was involved in testifying. I think he testified, or he definitely gave statements regarding the Greendale, the Montessori case that you've also covered, that you covered with Skip Clements. Dr. Nauman Greenberg was involved with, it seems, his role might be coming in and playing the role of a doctor and telling people during the cases of child abuse that there's nothing to see here. Greenberg said the children seemed troubled, but what he said was not immediately sure whether the problem was caused by the children's upbringing or the current circumstances. Some of their problems were the kind you might see in children who had been institutionalized, Greenberg said. The real casual contact with they would have with the adults reminded me of young children who had been on a pediatric ward for a long, long time. The children seemed physically healthy but showed signs of being something. The state took custody of the children last Wednesday when police arrested them. They were being held on a $100,000 bond. Health officials could not confirm statements made by Tallahassee police, that two of the children were sexually abused. So again, the Tallahassee police examined them and they claimed that there were signs of sexual abuse. John Award, the department administrator, said a doctor's report found a possibility of sexual abuse, but no conclusive evidence. Okay, so look, they claim no conclusive evidence. And like I said, there could be other reasons why a young girl's hymen gets broken, right? Maybe she's athletic and something happened. I mean, these things do happen, just to sort of play devil's advocate for a moment. But I don't know if it's a fair explanation to just explain it away when you have the initial Tallahassee police investigators claiming clear signs of sexual abuse on two of the children. And then you have this Greenberg coming in and kind of, poo-pooing it. Oh, there's nothing to see here. Everything's fine. And John Award said, our information does not substantiate that or unsubstantiate that. We are still in the process of looking at that, but we have come to no definitive conclusions. And in a related development, police in Etland, Virginia, said they found no evidence of criminal activity in the search of a farm owned by Marion Petty and a house owned by his sons George and David Petty. Virginia police spokesman Charles Bond said officers seized a computer, software, a couple of goat skins, a goat head, and some papers of various documents, writing, and cards. Now, I will say people have filed open records requests on the Virginia State Police as well. The Virginia State Police are the ones who raided the finders' farms and homes, and the Virginia State Police claim they have no documents. They claim that they are now in possession of the Customs Department. So we're being told that Ramon Martinez, stuck his nose in things that weren't his business, and that he made the whole thing up, or he exaggerated, or he fantasized this craziness about kids being abused, right? And at the same time, the Virginia police go raid the farms, which are owned by the finders, and they have documents somewhere of that. And when researchers and journalists have filed open records requests, they're told that those documents are unavailable because they're in the possession of the customs agency. So why would the Customs Department have those documents if there were no customs violations? Why wouldn't the Virginia State Police just release those documents and say, yeah, here's our documents. We went to the farm, we collected things, but there's nothing to see here. Instead, those documents are now in the possession of the customs agency. And I think that's very telling. All right. So this covers some of the little more details on the actual case. $100,000 bond for two finders members facing misdemeanor charges. This is kind of interesting. They describe what the men look like. Reynolds entered pleas of innocence for both men and said that they would receive a jury trial. They remained in county jail pending a trial. No court date was set. The men have been sent sleek to the finders. group police originally called a satanic cult. Police later backed off that description and now refer to them simply as an organization. Houlihan, or Michael Howell, appeared before Judge Reynolds dressed in jail-issue blue pants and shirt, white socks, sandals, and leg shackles. He seemed nervous, often hesitating before answering questions and speaking in clipped, strained sentences. Scott Hunt, Tallahassee police spokesman, said Tuesday both men had been charged with 6 counts of child abuse, but Fordham said papers sent by police listed only the single charge. Now, I want to mention Scott Hunt. For those, again, who follow this channel and have followed my investigations, I did a podcast a while back called On the Hunt about the finders, and how Scott Hunt, this guy who is here in this article that they're talking about here, he was in the courtroom. He was one of the people who brought the 6 counts of child abuse against the men who were eventually let go. And Scott Hunt is also one of the people who said that there was a cover-up going on. So you got Sergeant John Stitcher, the Metro PD, saying that there was a cover-up, and he ends up dead within a couple of years. Scott Hunt of the Tallahassee Police Department, he also says there was a cover-up. I know that I've tried to contact him. I think John's tried to contact him. So far, nobody's been able to find him or to get him to speak. But those are at least 2 different people from 2 different departments, as well as others, who have talked about a cover-up involving the finders, right? So let's just be clear about that. Health and Rehabilitative Services District Administrator John Awad said a physician's report found a possibility of sexual abuse, but no conclusive evidence. So again, we have come to no definitive conclusions. Police in Etland, Virginia, meanwhile, dug a 30-foot trench on a farm owned by the finders, and they were looking for unidentified source something where were buried remains. Virginia State Police spokesman Charles Vaughn said no remains, human or animal, were found. The unidentified source told police there were 2 Tallahassee, so it cuts off the sentence there. The Tallahassee police had said last week that 2 or more of the children taken into custody had been abused. And again, they mentioned Chicago child psychiatrist Nauman Greenberg has begun interviewing the 6 youngsters. Greenberg said his preliminary interview suggested the children had a living arrangement that was probably not very healthy. The real causal contact they would have with the adults remind me of young children who had been on a pediatric ward for a long time. We just said that. The children are being kept at a secret location because of phone threats. And this is another interesting aspect of the whole finders thing. You know, when they arrest the men and they take the children in custody, they say that people start calling them and threatening to come get the kids or to bomb them. So they have to take the kids into some, secret headquarters. I think at one point, and John Brisson, you'll know if this is incorrect, but I swear somewhere at some point I read that they were keeping the kids in a treehouse. Like, if I remember that correctly, or maybe it was a place called the treehouse, like a child center. I can't remember the details on it. It's been so many documents and files. Greenberg said he did not discuss animal sacrifice or sexual abuse in his initial talks with the children because he did not want to traumatize them immediately by forcing them to deal with possibly painful subjects. The children will remain in HRS care until at least February 26th, when they must go before a circuit judge to recommend what should be done with them. The recommendation could include more time in state care. So yeah, these are just, like I said, we're just reading through the documents, guys. And what I'm essentially looking at here, and I'm not going to read every single one of these. These are just articles. This is from the UPI, which is just like AP, just like Reuters. And these are just short reports that are coming in every day. This is from February 9th. So every day, new reports were coming in. And like I said, most of this is stuff that we've already known. But this is what the FBI has in their files. I don't know that it's completely relevant or important to just sit here and read every single article that they have listed in here, because most of this information was already known. Now, I will say here's Scott Hunt's name again. He says that authorities had released the pictures of the children in hopes of finding relatives, even though it meant public exposure of sexually abused children. He noted that authorities have not said which of the children had been sexually abused, and added that the pictures resulted in many new leads. He said authorities are also investigating a possible finder's presence in Gainesville, Florida, but could offer no specifics. We believe there is a Gainesville connection. Either they traveled to there, they've stayed there, or were planning to go. Exactly what the connection is, we don't know. Hunt said 2 Washington investigators were still in Tallahassee, but had not spoken with the children. Hunt said the FBI would handle the investigation of a memo delivered during the weekend to Washington police from Robert Gardner Terrell. And Terrell says, "We never touch a child except with love. we're allowing the children to grow up in touch with their own intuition, to learn at their own speed, to learn how to walk and talk when they naturally feel it's time to learn to walk and talk and read. So, all right, we're going to pause real quick, and I'm going to check out some more comments. Again, you are listening to Derrick Broze on the Conscious Resistance channel here. We're going through the second dump of the Finders documents, which were just released, I think, today or in the last day or so by the FBI. And, so we're going to continue to cover this. And I ask that you guys give us some likes, give us some thumbs up. We got 100 plus viewers right now. Let's get 100 plus likes on this and share this out. If you're watching it live right now, please do share it out. I'm going to read through some of the comments right now and catch up. What's up, everybody? There's pedophilia going on? Well, the first thing we have to do with good lawmakers is to rule out the Catholic Church. Even after Petty's death, the finder is still alive. Exactly. Is it okay to suggest kind of relevant videos from other channels in chat? I mean, you guys can recommend whatever you want. You won't hear about the finders again until Hong Kong is a part of China again. Interview with Finders leader in 1986. Yep, that was an interesting comment. All right, guys, I'm going to just check up on these comments. Who is the Greenberg connection, though? John, if you remember, the treehouse, it was a safe house. That's what I thought. I didn't think it was a literal treehouse, but I do remember that mentioned. So the Greenberg guy, he's been around for quite some time. He plays cover for these kind of cases, from what I remember. All right, so let's continue on. You are watching The Conscious Resistance. We are doing a live deep dive of the Finders documents number 2 from the FBI, which just released in the last day or so. And what we're looking at right now at the moment, these are just articles related to the Finders cases. These aren't specifically anything I think that we would find new or relevant. I mean, a lot of these articles I've read before. If you dig deep enough, you can find them. So this isn't like actual FBI files. And that's what John had told me in the beginning, that most of this was previously seen information. All right, so now we're out of that. Let's see what we got here. This is a copy of the Tallahassee Police Department. And, okay, so these, we're not even going to bother trying to look through these because, like I said, these are scanned, crappy copies of this. We have the actual documents that are much more clean than this. You know, the writer's handwriting is difficult to read in general, but it's so much easier to read these on the actual documents. And I will post the link to those, or John, if you want to go ahead and post those in the chat. And for everybody who's listening to this later, not live, and wondering who the hell is John Brisson, Brisson, you can search his name on this channel, The Conscious Resistance, and listen to an interview we've done together. You can also go subscribe to him over at We've Read the Documents. But what I'm scrolling through right here, guys, and excuse the scrolling if you're getting dizzy, just breathe. None of this is new. I've covered this in other documents, and the Tallahassee Police Department documents are readily available elsewhere. They're even redacted, and these copies are redacted, and with the copies that I have, and I think that are publicly available, are not redacted, or at least not to this degree. So we're going to keep scrolling through this. You guys can go back through this if you want, but I mean, look at this. These are just shitty, torn pieces of papers. Could they make this any more illegible? Could they make it more difficult to read? The other thing is, I will say, though, just while we're kind of looking at this, this is sort of an interesting aspect. This right here, Tallahassee Police Department Property Evidence Notification, April 16th, 87. Appropriate action should be taken in regards to property evidence for reason below. And so they have these different options, right? So say when you get arrested, the cops take your property. They can either return it to you, or it says property has been returned from lab, now available in property section. Property section needs the disposition status on above case. Incomplete property, record turned in with property. So these are just giving you examples, right? But you see down here, they wrote other. Destroy number 1 and 2. Destroy one. So, and right here it says destroyed. So there definitely were pieces of documents that were destroyed, different things that they found in the cars. Tan and orange sleeping bag, blue electric blanket. Items are mildewed and in poor condition, please destroy. So they're claiming that what they destroyed was sleeping bags and blankets. But how many other things that they found were destroyed? White envelope addressed to somebody, letters to somebody, destroyed. So again, most of this is things that I've seen before elsewhere. Sheet of paper with rules, conduct, destroyed. Why would they destroy the sheet of paper describing the finder's rules and conduct? Why would they want to get rid of that? Radio Shack, TRS-80 Radio Shack computer. We know all about that. This evidence may be released to owner, but most of it, from what we've known, was destroyed. They might have given some of the things back to the finders, but for the most part, they either held on to the evidence or they destroyed them. This says computer disks can be released to the finders group. So, like I said, most of this is new. Evidence, property case, evidence can be released to owner. The vehicle towed in the above listed case was released on March 2nd, 87 to the owner or legal representative according to Deloche Records Service. Attached is an itemized receipt listing the charges paid for towing service. Record service, towing. Okay, so these are just, basic documents. This technician photographed a blank bearing Virginia state tags, which was impounded at the above listed address. There was a blue electric blanket and an orange and tan sleeping bag collected from the van interior storage area as evidence. So chronology report closed as of February 87. So these are basic Tallahassee Police Department documents, and some of these are customs. Now we're switching over. We're on customs report documents. Excuse me. So this is the last Tallahassee Police Department document, and now we're in Department of Treasury State Customs Service case chronology and review form. So this is customs reports, and some of this may be new. This is, of course, the customs report comes from Raymond Martinez. It has been the key piece of evidence for decades now, and without Ramon Martinez's report, we probably would have never even heard about this. Of course, John and myself and other researchers wish that Martinez would just stop being so paranoid. I mean, not that I can blame him, but we wish that he would come out and speak more openly. Now, here we go. This is Department of Treasury, U.S. Customs Service. Let's see if there's anything new here. This does not look familiar to me. The office was contacted by Tallahassee Police Department on February 5th, 1987. It's just telling the basic story, but we got to see if there's anything new. Is there anything new? Contacted via telephone by Sergeant of the Tallahassee Police Department, Juvenile Division. Sergeant requested assistance in identifying two males. The police had received an anonymous call about two well-dressed white men wearing suits. The children were covered with insect bites. We all know this. The office contacted the office. Sorry, guys, I'm not trying to drive you crazy with my sound effects and my noises over here, but I'm only going to talk about what's important, because we got 166 pages. We are about halfway through that, and most of them I think are repeats and things like that, but I want to make sure we get through everything here and we don't miss anything. And again, I do recommend you listen to John's live stream in the morning, because John has an eye for things that sometimes I might miss, and vice versa. Sometimes he sees things I don't see, and I see things he might miss, and we collaborate together. But so far, this doesn't look to be anything new. This is just basic customs agency stuff. A senior special agent and I assisted the D.C. Metro Police Department with 2 search warrants involving the possible sexual exploitation of children. Now here we go. During the course of the search, warrants, numerous documents were discovered which appeared to be concerning international trafficking in children, high-tech transfer to the UK, and international transfer of currency. Interesting. I wonder why that was all lost by the end of the end of the investigation. On March 31st, 1987, I contacted Detective of the Washington, D.C. Metro Police. I believe that's Detective Jim Bradley. I was to meet with Detective Bradley to review the documents seized pursuant to 2 search warrants executed in February 1987. And this is where Martinez says that he was told in a strictly off the basis that the investigation, all passport data had been turned over to the State Department. The State Department, in turn, advised the MPD that all travel and the use of the passports was within the law and no action would be taken. And, of course, the travel by the finders and their documents included travel to Moscow, North Korea, and North Vietnam from the late 50s to the mid-1970s, which obviously those countries, Moscow, that's during the Communist Red Scare, Vietnam, that's during the Vietnam War, and North Korea, these are countries that most Americans aren't supposed to be visiting, especially during these time periods, and the finders they have records of them visiting those places, and the State Department comes in and says, don't worry, it's all good, everything's legal, and we're going to go ahead and just take those passports and handle that. The individual further advised me of circumstances which indicated the investigation into the finders of the activity of the finders, and it's redacted here, but we know from the unredacted version that it said had become a CIA matter. The MPD report has been classified secret and was not available for review. I was advised that the FBI had withdrawn from their investigation several weeks prior and that the FBI had directed the MPD not to advise the Washington Metro Field Office of everything that had transpired. No further information will be available. No further action will be taken. And that's this stuff right here. This has all been seen before. And that's kind of what was the important part, is that Martinez said no further action will be taken, no further information available. Because the finders case was taken over by the CIA, and apparently the FCIA, the Foreign Counterintelligence Agency, as well. Now here's a copy of the Washington Post article from February 1987, Officials Weigh the Future of the Finders' Children. Again, we're not going to just sit here and read these articles over and over. And then by February 10th, no evidence found of wrongdoing. You see how quickly the story changes? Within a week, all of a sudden, nothing to see here. Don't worry about those State Department passports that we're covering up. Don't worry about evidence of child trafficking or of laundering money, or international wire transfer and high tech equipment. Don't worry about any of that stuff. And this is again just more articles kind of re-going over the story. I'm going to say there's not much new here. You can read each of these articles if you want, but honestly, I wouldn't expect there to be anything new that we haven't seen or heard. Occasionally there is. I will say that one of the ways I found all the information that I have is by reading hundreds of articles on the finders via newspapers.com and other old resources where I was able to gather new documents. Now, what I will say is right here, look, this is February 7th, 1987. Officials describe cult rituals in child abuse case. This is by Washington Post, right? Photos of youngsters at D.C. warehouse were seized. D.C. police who searched the Northeast Washington warehouse removed large plastic bags filled with color slides, photographs, and photographic contact sheets. Some photos that were visible through a bag were wallet-sized pictures of children similar to school photos, and some were of naked children. So, I mean, right there, the Washington Post on February 7th is saying that, yeah, we saw them walking out of the warehouse with a bag of pictures with naked kids, and they look like, school photos, like something you could just fit in your wallet and share with people. And then Sunday, February, then by, we go up to February 10th, no evidence found of wrongdoing. So, but somewhere between February 7th, it's being reported that, there's pictures of naked kids that were carried out in bags from the warehouse, and 3 days later, there's no evidence of wrongdoing. No mention again that Sergeant Scott Hunt of the TPD's Tallahassee Police Department said there was a cover-up. No mention that the fact that Sergeant John Stitcher involved in the Metro PD said there was a cover-up. No mention of U.S. Customs Agent Ramon Martinez. No mention of the State Department passports, of the high-tech equipment, of the evidence of money, transfers to other places. They're potentially buying kids from UK and things like that. All that stuff just disappears within days. And here's an interesting one. Finders Group has roots in popular 60s hippie refuge. The Finders, about 40 people who lived in a Glover Park house, a Northeast Washington warehouse, and a farm in rural Virginia, are what remains of a popular 1960s hippie refuge that evolved into a society dedicated to communalism and to studying the future, according to court documents, experts on cult, and law enforcement officials. A fragmentary sketch of the Finders emerged yesterday as investigators, cult experts, and neighbors and social workers scrambled to figure out whether the children were mistreated. Whatever outsiders had contact with the Finders, they considered the group odd. There was talk of houses segregated by sex, children separated from their parents, vans that came and went, and a mysterious guru who called himself the Stroller and fancied himself a seer and a political powerhouse. And that is, of course, Marion Petty, a.k.a. the game caller, the seer, the Stroller, things of that sort. And police found an ornate tombstone and round stones gathered near a circle about 70 yards behind Glover Park in D.C. Now, I don't think a circle of stones is enough evidence to call somebody satanic. I mean, it's stupid. Let me just say that. It's stupid if you think a circle of stones are satanic. Just chill out. Stop watching scary right-wing Christian TV. Now, does that mean there was no occult, hidden things or rituals? No, it doesn't mean that they weren't happening, but I'm just saying, you don't just, oh my God, there's a circle of stones and they're Satanists. That's just stupid. So let's see what else it says here, though. As long ago as 1968, hippies and peace activists in Washington often visited Petty's farm, a 90-acre property in Madison County near Shenandoah National Park. 4 people who visited the farm, as it was known between 1968 and 1973, said yesterday it was a place where anyone could get an organic meal without charge, without question. They recalled a leader in his 40s, a charismatic and wealthy man named Marion Petty. Now, this is interesting, John, because or everybody, but I'm speaking to John because he's very versed in this as I am. I know of the farm that's in Tennessee that still exists and has been around, but I hadn't seen the Finder's farm referred to as the farm. And while they're talking about it being like a home for the hippies and this and that, eventually these hippie followers did morph into the suit and ties, professional clothes that Petty preferred everybody to be in. And it was made clear that, hey, this isn't just a place for hippies to come hang out. Like, we want to do actual work. And so if you're going to be a part of our group, then you got to be willing to go on all these missions and play games and do things like that. But it's interesting because for those who do know, that there is definitely CIA involvement in a lot of the counterculture hippie movement. That doesn't mean every aspect of the counterculture is bad, of course, but we do know that the CIA had a role in funding much of it, from the LSD experiments to the hippie movement in general to Laurel Canyon to many different aspects of the 60s movements and the sort of offshoots of that. And Petty was into the human potential movement, which sort of has connections to the transhumanist movement. And as I cover in detail in the documentary, Petty's wife worked for the CIA. His son worked for the CIA. He comes out of naval intelligence. The guy was clearly set up to create a commune, to run a farm, and to do all these different things, and to help traffic children. And their cover story was that they were finders. They were just finding information, and that they were just journalists out there researching. George Petty, son of Marion Petty, said the group is like an extended family largely made of people who have dropped out of professional careers and are under his father's sway. The Binders, they have a father now, and they get to play fun games, George Petty said. He said he hasn't talked to his father in 2 years. They're the kids, and they're obedient. They like to do what the father says to do. George Petty says that he doesn't know any of the group members practicing Satanism or abusing children, but that the lives of the children are unpleasant because members rear them collectively. Frequently, Marion Petty would assign a follower a game or an adventure overseas, and the group members would not see their children for months. George Petty said the group engaged in constant babysitting. Quote, I wouldn't want to be a child there without a reliable day-in, day-out parent figure. He said of the children found in the back of the van, I bet you $1 you'll find their biological mothers living at W Street, which is the warehouse. And if they're not there now, then they're off on some adventure. And they go into detail talking about how he would send his people off to adventures. And he said if someone had some character weakness, the leader would send him or her away to, say, Hawaii to work, then to return to describe his lesson to other members. They support themselves in temporary office jobs in Washington, which, again, that sounds like, you couldn't really make more of a perfect setup for intelligence agents. Give them temporary jobs as journalists or as other things like that, and then they can pick up and leave and move whenever they want. It really does have the MO of intelligence agencies. Marion Petty has a long and consuming interest in the future, and his futurism is a major component of the group's philosophy. Originally, he based his teachings on Carlos Castaneda's popular 1960 Chronicles of Mystic Self-Exploration, a precursor of the 1970s New Age movement. Edward Morse, a Wisconsin psychologist who works with cult members, said he has tracked the Finders for 5 years, interviewing several members. He said they are well-educated, secretive people who have no clear parental kind of responsibility as we know it, instead sharing responsibility for the children. He said most of the children live with the members of the groups. In summer, neighbors saw as many as 12 children at the county farm. There was always hollering and screaming going on. They were always hollering about Mama and Daddy. One time I heard one say, I want milk. Another person said, shut up, you ain't going to get it. Another neighbor of the farm said he spoke to an 11-year-old boy who said the children didn't go to school because no adults told them to. They always talked 60s jargon, do your own thing stuff, the man said. He said members of the finders appeared to hold jobs in computer businesses. And so a little bit of background, but nothing majorly new. This is from the Tallahassee Democrat. Officials delve into mystery of children. All right, we're going to start moving through this a little bit. U.S. government memo. The resident agent in charge, Washington, D.C., pursuant to your request, which was routed through special agent, attached is a copy of the D.C. reports of investigation concerning the finders. An index search did not disclose records on any of the individuals named in the finders' files. So this is, again, Customs reports here. Per the attached Freedom of Information request, please forward information or renew or anything you have on the finders and or the index listed on the attached requesting sheet. This is a request. So this is just a copy of the actual open records request for the finders information. Let's see. Finders group, sexual exploitation, and they're just basically attached to this memo is a photocopy of the Washington Metro PD case file concerning the caption group. Now, this is again the stuff that I think we saw in the last FBI document dump, which makes it clear that the FBI or the FCI and the CIA did cover it up. So they're just looking through the internal LexisNexis systems right here. This is really nothing new. There's a copy of the Chicago Tribune, February 10th, 1987. Probe can't prove child abuse by Colt. So these are just copies of more articles that were found in the internal FBI files. I might be missing something by scrolling through here like this, but I feel pretty generally safe that there's nothing new that's going to be reported on a news agency that we haven't seen before. All right, we're going to do a quick pause for a moment. I'm going to check the comments on this and see how you guys are doing. Again, thank you guys for following. We got 113 likes and 104 viewers. Awesome. I appreciate that, guys. If you haven't liked this yet, please do give us a thumbs up and let me know that you're supporting this. Again, this is the deep dive and new finders document, which were only released in the last day or so, and we're going to continue to cover them as we get new developments. For those who haven't seen our Finders documentary, it is called Who Will Find What the Finders Hide. You can find it at theconsciousresistance.com/finders, and you can watch the whole thing. And of course, you can find our whole playlist, on the YouTube channel. All right, I'm going to go through some of the comments. Okay, yeah, Greenberg was a lead expert for the McMartin case. Yep, and I bet this was testing psychological methods to create high intelligence and stuff. There are links to different personality types. And all right, so we got some trolls. Always welcome the trolls here. Trolls, people with nothing better to do in their life, you are always welcome here because, if you want to waste your time trolling us, you're not going to have much fun. I'm thinking you'll follow the Q stuff for some odd reason. Yeah, if you're coming here with your Q thing and thinking this has something to do with Q and Trump's bringing down the bad guys, you're in the wrong place. But all right, we're going to continue on. We're nearly towards the end. We're 1 hour and 7 minutes in. We've got 111 viewers. We've got 118 likes. Let's get these numbers up. We're going to continue our coverage. We're looking at the FBI's second finders document dump, and we are about 3/4 of, we're on page 96 of 166. Let's keep going, guys. In an affidavit supporting the search, Virginia authorities included photographs showing 3 white-robed finders men and several children dismembering 2 goats. The photos were in scrapbook titled The Execution. We know that. In one picture, a crying child looked at a decapitated goat. Another photo was captioned, Ben finds Henrietta's womb. 3 pictures showed children playing with goat fetuses. All just normal stuff. That's just how you do unschooling, right? I mean, for me, I just want to pause here. For me, as somebody who, does support ideas like unschooling and homeschooling, getting people out of the state education system, I have plenty of friends with kids who have used unschooling methods. And let's say you are somebody who's a hunter or a meat eater, you might want to really educate your kids. Because, we've talked about this on this channel. Many people these days are so detached from their diet and where their food comes from, right? There's kids out there eating chicken nuggets, and I've done this with my nieces and nephews and say, you know what that is? It's a chicken. And like, oh yeah, it's chicken. But like, they don't understand it. They don't make the connection that there was a living being that came from the chicken, right? That the chicken came and turned into this nugget, even though it's probably not real chicken meat. My point here is, though, it could be a valuable lesson to show kids this and to show, like, well, here's where your meat comes from. It's not just something that appears on your plate. Let's go out and let's do, a harvest of the meat. Let's skin it. Let's do all these sort of things. That's not unusual for certain parts of the country and certain lifestyles. I just want to make that clear. I don't know if they would dress up in white robes and make the kids take pictures holding fetuses. I don't know. But I'm just trying to say that doesn't necessarily mean something bad. And you guys might not like hearing that because you want everything to be some, deep state pedophilia plot, but it isn't necessarily always the case. Now, that doesn't mean that the finders are innocent or anything like that. I'm just making it clear, because what happens is some of you go around and you see things like this, and then somebody's out with a circle of stones saying a prayer, and you call them satanic, or somebody wants to post a picture of a dead animal, and you call them satanic, or it's some sort of ritual. And so we have to be discerning. We have to be able to think for ourselves and not just blindly get sucked into seeing pedophiles everywhere. Pedophiles are real, but guess what? The people in charge, the intelligence agencies that are involved in this stuff, they flood us with lots of fake information because they want us to be chasing our tails and, is this the finders? Is this the real group? Just a sort of side rant. Sorry for that. But, we have to think critically. That's my whole point. Think critically. Think for yourself. Stop being delusional. The Nation reports, this is a 1987 Nation report, the Los Angeles Times report. The Nation, Virginia cult sites raided. And this is again talking about the Virginia raid. Color slides, photos of 5 rural locations linked to the finders, reported to be a satanic cult. Virginia authorities searched cabins and outbuildings in the mountainous Nethers and Etland area of Madison County. Meanwhile, the 6 children found dirty and hungry in the van were moved out of emergency shelters after threatening phone calls. All right, nothing new there. Metro PD, Office of the Chief of Police. Let's see if we got anything new. There's some pictures. These are the articles that we've all seen before. Officials weigh future of finders' children. These are not anything new. These are from the Washington Post. Finders say they fear for children. 5 women seek custody of children. That's from the Washington Post. Finders get the 6 children. Temporary custody granted to the mothers. D.C. Police. Finders odd but not criminal. FBI, Virginia, and Florida expand probes. This was February 2nd, 87. And this is interesting because you guys won't see many pictures of this. I did find some older pictures that show the farm, and I think, if I'm positive, I believe I'm positive, we actually show these in the Finders documentary. Pictures of the farm itself and the police raid. So this is a picture, and you can find this address on Google Maps if you want, or any map service. But this shows a picture from that time. A warehouse in Northeast Washington believed to have been occupied by the Finders. And you can see that. Pet, and we're going to keep going. Police link cult to case of unidentified children. All right, well, let's see what this. The authorities in several states sought to identify 6 young children who the police said were apparently taken from their parents in D.C. Known to one another by such names as Benjamin Franklin, John Paul Pope, and Honeybee, the children were taken into protective custody by police in Tallahassee. Acting on information supplied by detectives in D.C., the police in Washington searched a house in D.C. We all know that. The band of children has baffled the police, who said the case resembled something more like a Pied Piper story than a tale of the occult. Some of the children told investigators they had not seen their parents since Christmas and they'd been traveling. Other children said that one of the men was their father, although he denied it. And that's kind of typical stuff. 2 child abuse linked. Los Angeles Times. So this is just a list of articles here. John, I haven't said what you told me on the call earlier. I haven't seen what you mentioned to me, and maybe I missed it already, but if you know the page, or if you want to save it for your stream, I will keep it quiet. I'm just kind of looking to see if I can find it, and I want to keep that quiet since you told me about it. But look at this. This is more D.C. police documents, and these are heavily redacted. Giant chunks of redaction. This one is just a big old redaction. Nothing to see here. That whole paragraph apparently can't be seen. And we can't know who the statement was made by. It says statement of somebody and big redaction. According to somebody, they left approximately 1 month ago with the children to Berea, Kentucky. They stayed with the kids at the blank in Berea. Approximately 3 weeks ago, they left Kentucky and went to Florida to a town called Archer and stayed with Somebody. Again, somebody drove the 6 children to Florida. Drove the land in Archer, Florida. This is about 1 week after the 2 other subjects and the children were in Archer. The approximate date of the arrival was on January. Stated that somebody left around the same time to go to San Francisco, California to work. And again, we have another statement to the Metro Police Department, but it's redacted, and a big statement redacted out of there. On February 3rd, 1987, blank drove towards Tallahassee, staying outside the town, blank. So this part now, we're getting to some important things, I'm going to guess, because whoever is making these statements on record to the MPD, we're not allowed to know what they say 30 plus years later. Statement of somebody. Statement stated that he has no knowledge of this. He stated that the children were in good health, although they did have some bug bites. He had no knowledge of blank. He stated that the Radio Shack Model 100 computer was left accidentally by somebody near a phone booth on the campus of the University of Florida. Now, we talked about that previously. Finders to sell property to move to Florida. And we're just here's an old picture of them in court. Doug Emmerman and James Howell leave a courthouse after their bond was reduced to $5,000. Mothers win custody of 3 men. Florida judge sends 2 finders' children to foster homes. This picture on the right looks unrelated. So it's talking about the finders who announced the dissolution of their group in March are still together and living in California, according to several people who were in contact with them. So it says they're no longer investigating the finders, but again, this is what they told everybody, is that the group would dissolve, they would break apart, and that would be it. But they secretly had a master plan, and I haven't seen a copy of this master plan that apparently was in the possession of the DC police and the Metro police, which details their real plan to, lie and to change their name and to break apart into different pieces. But apparently there did exist a master plan from the finders, which detailed their true plans. Now here's Washington Metro Police Department document, February 13th, 1987. Director, Intelligence Division to Supervising Agent. And it says, this report will be a compilation of information learned while your investigator was in Tallahassee, Florida. The information contained herein was obtained from members of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, Police Department, the Tallahassee Resident Agency of the FBI, and 2 of the 6 children involved in this. In order to avoid unnecessary duplications, we will not be repeated here. The report will be divided into the following categories: overview of the investigation, synopsis of travel, investigation, and attachments. The information obtained from somebody and the authorities in Florida reflected the following positions, and they redact a lot of this. During the evening of Saturday, February 7th, your investigator was directed to report to the Baltimore-Washington International Airport for the purpose of flying to Tallahassee, Florida. This was done, and your investigator embarked upon 4 days of fact-finding and interviews within the state of Florida. And in a big redacted paragraph, on the morning of Thursday, February 13th, the preliminary investigation was concluded, and your investigators spent the balance of the day returning to D.C. The interviews conducted by your investigator were designed to minimize any potential trauma to the children. First interview with this. After 1,800 hours on the evening of Sunday, February 8th, your investigator talked with somebody from the Tallahassee Police Department, interviewed at his home in the presence of something of HRS, was known variously, so lots of redactions here. Your investigator was introduced to somebody from Washington, and we're not allowed to know what they say. So much of this is still redacted. People wondering why are we researching this? Why are we looking into this? Well, because, as I said earlier, some people are still around, they're still alive, they're still involved in covering this up. And this is another name that has come up before. I know that John has talked about this. I've seen this. Gung Ho Traders was likely one of the other names of the Finders front groups. It says, copy of handwritten letter on Gung Ho Traders, stationery signed by somebody, a genital graphic, computer-generated letter to somebody, an envelope addressed to somebody in Gainesville. I don't know what the heck that means, but Gung Ho Traders is something that we've seen before in the many names of the Finders front companies. A copy of the Ballad of Ballads, a 2-page listing of names, addresses, and telephone numbers, several of which go to Czechoslovakia, England, the Philippines, and China. All right, this is the Ballad of Ballads. I haven't seen this before. John, if you've seen this, let me know. But so the Ballad of the Ballads This could be some kind of hidden. We're going to read through this, guys. I haven't seen this, but this could be something. I don't know. Let's just check it out. It looks like it's maybe a poem. What were their names and what were their games? Who are these funny persons who play the game of games? Sometimes they act like nice guys or dragons raising hell, but before it flips, they change the game. That's why it works so well. When I first met the players, they lived in a funky house. They had rats down in the basement and carpets full of louse. In the living room, the nymphs danced. In the basement, they smoked pot. They had one thing in common. They needed to learn a lot. Some went to the country. Some went to Georgetown. Georgetown University, of course, is CIA University. They scattered to the winds. They couldn't stand to hang around. Some went across the river. They got into real estate. They started making money, and they thought it was great. The ones out in the country, they smoked a lot of pot. Their game was getting colder, but they thought it was hot. The other one who went there and moved in with blank, he worked all day and fucked all night and thought that it was swell. So somebody's name rhymes with swell, and it's redacted out of this ballad of ballad poems. The one who went to Georgetown was working for the Temps. She had a big apartment and paid a lot of rent. Her guests weren't very helpful, which made it kind of rough, but she turned it into learning, and that's how she got tough. The boys across the river, they had the best of trips. They had 5 men working with them, making first-rate buggy whips. But boy, were they surprised when their game began to flip. They took an old man's ticket, and when they lost their zip. The tough one in Georgetown, she moved to Glover Park. She got together with friends to make the New Age Ark. Of course, that's what they were calling the finders in the beginning, the Ark, the new Ark. They bought themselves some buildings and filled them up with fools. Then the fools became the teachers in a topsy-turvy school. The woman in the country got tired of all the noise. She wished that they would stay away except for her 2 boys. So she got a house with 14 rooms. The funnies stayed away, but she wonders what is coming next down to this very day. The players got a warehouse over in N-Word Town, right next to the pool hall. No one would come around. So they made it green and global and invented games to play. Now their friends sign up 2 months ahead to use it for one day. They made it green and global and invented games to play. Now their friends sign up 2 months ahead to use it for one day. They woke up one fine morning and 5 had disappeared. They were gone to Pennsylvania, or so it did appear. 4 more, they say, were wished away. Now everyone's perplexed. They don't know what to wish for or what is coming next. The disappearing players showed up on the West Coast. They started into playing all the games they liked the most. They built themselves a magnet and started to attract. Pretty soon a lot of persons come to get into their act. They built themselves a magnet and started to attract. That could be talking about Marion Petty, him becoming the magnet for people. Because they called him a charismatic, magnetic leader. A dozen persons gathered in the middle of the night. They loaded up and disappeared before the morning light. Just like a tribe of nomads, they drove across the land. They got to where the problems are cause they're the backup band. They slipped into their playhouse and quietly began to make another model world according to their plan. The word leaked out that they were back. They opened a bank, and all of their old connections came to get a lot of blank. They went to San Diego where they met another fool, then on to Hawaii where they opened up a school. The gifts and games abounded, the dramas all unfurled, as they went on and earn and learn their way around the world. The returning troops were greeted by a fat wop and a Jew, so they wintered in Miami where he showed them what he knew. The PhD, she fell in love with a Sufi businessman. He thought she was magnetic, and he bought her a used van. Blank took the rabbi for a walk around the block, and they started up another house for the Jewish Orthodox. A man from Oxford joined the crew where Blank set the tone. They took a trip to England and consumed his student loan. The cabin on the mountain was the newest school of schools with 2 mean kids from Arlington, Virginia. That whole area is intelligence agencies. With the 2 mean kids from Arlington and other assorted fools. The Sufi and the CPA invested in the town. Then the Sufi went to the Panama and invited somebody down. In the midst of all the folly, the tough one led a team that kept the student ship afloat until she ran out of steam. But before she left, she asked him to elevate the game, so he started calling prayer meetings, and everybody came. Somebody left and tried to sink the ship, but the parents and the cult watchers thought that was very hip. But they ran into a buzzsaw of the wit and humor kind. The fat man got his ring back, but he lost his peace of mind. They players All got married and began a hive of bees, with the kids out in the country and the adults on their knees. A crew went out to China and came back to start HQ. They learned to follow orders, and they solved some problems too. The great didact departed for the school up in the sky, but first she signed some paper for recording on the sly. The boys got legalistic, mother something was distressed, when in an act of courtesy their land was repossessed. What were their names and what were their games? Who are these funny persons who play the game of games? Sometimes they act like nice guys or dragons raising hell, but before it flips, they change the game. That's why it works so well. So pretty weird stuff there, man. I've heard them refer to the Ballad of Ballads. I had never actually read it. John, I don't know if you've seen a copy of it anywhere, and it's interesting that this is just some long poem. I'm going to guess there's definitely lots of messages hidden in there. And the fact that the FBI chose to redact some of the names and statements in there, I think it means that it's still relevant, that whoever they're referring to, and if you were to break down the pieces, you could probably decipher what it means. Does it go anywhere, or is it just another trick by the finders? Because, like we know, their whole game is just tricks, games, getting us chasing our tails. Is there any meaning to this? And the other thing is, why the hell is the FBI now deciding to drop these documents? I mean, I wish I could claim some role in this, that maybe the documentary and the new investigations and people like John Brisson and others who are investigating this, that we're getting on the trail, and so they finally decided to release these documents. I don't know. All I know is you can see here, all information contained here is classified as recently as February 2014. And for some reason, they decided to quietly dump this new information. I don't know. We don't know. Tallahassee Police Department news release, February 11th, 1987. There are no new developments in the cases of the 6 missing children, nor do we anticipate any major developments. In response to news media reports which suggested possible differences of opinion between the Tallahassee Police Department and the Washington, D.C., the Tallahassee Police Department will not comment on information supplied by unnamed sources. This afternoon, Tallahassee Police Department Deputy Chief William Scott spoke with Washington Police Chief Maurice Turner and confirmed that no problems exist between the two agencies and that we continue to enjoy a good working relationship. The Tallahassee Police Department will not compromise the integrity of this good working relationship by giving credibility to unnamed sources. It is important to remember that the investigation of the finders was outside the jurisdiction of the Tallahassee Police Department. Our investigation continues to focus on child abuse charges against the 2 suspects in custody. These cases have been bound over to the state's attorney's office, and we will be cooperating with them. Until there are further developments, we will make no further public comment. And this is somebody's report of the initial arrest. Children in Washington, D.C. gave them the information. Concerning the children, they stated that they would give the information to one of their interviewers in the morning. We only got 30 pages left, guys. If you're barely holding on, I'm barely holding on. We're near the end. They also checked for any children currently missing that matched the descriptions. This interviewer also contacted Sergeant of Metro PD in Washington, D.C. He was given the number, Sergeant Stitcher, he was given the number and address of the house. He stated that he would call this number and see who was there. Sergeant called this interviewee back and stated that the phone number has an answering machine hookup with a very weird message on it. He did not say what the message was. He stated that he was going to send a cruiser to the house. He then transferred this interviewee to the desk of some other sergeant. She took information from this interviewee in regards to the child abuse charges. She also stated that the message on the answering machine was strange. She stated that the message had some kind of biblical passage on it. And the biblical passage, I don't know off the top of my head, but I know that it's quoted in other articles that the find that Marion Petty had it in Virginia, like this message was put above on the little marquee at one of their places. I can't remember what exact passage it was. This interview attempted to interview both suspects. They were read their rights per Miranda and asked to sign an acknowledgement. Both of them refused. Suspect asked what the charges were. He was advised of the charges of child abuse. The other suspect laid on the floor of the holding cell and jerked his body. He refused to open his eyes or acknowledge this interview. The van was inventoried by patrol and towed to Deloches. This interview was also advised that both suspects were given a $100,000 cash bond. Following another group of interviews in an unrelated case, this interviewee went through some items removed from the van. A piece of paper titled The Ballad of Ballads was there. The ballad made reference to the warehouse, a house in the mountains, Miami, Hawaii, San Diego, and China. Computer disks were also found in the van. Interviewee advised that when he ran them, they proved to be program disks, not databases. Late that night, Detective so-and-so contacted this interviewee. He advised that he had been on the search warrant at the warehouse. He stated that they had found a large amount of computer goods, a hot tub, a sauna, a large TV room, a library of books, some concerning mind control, a satellite dish on the roof, and various stage-like settings in rooms that were roped off. And this is, of course, where they say that they were just filming scenes, again, acting out things. The kids were unschooled, and so they were letting them act out fantasies and do plays, and other people suggest that this could be where they might be filming child pornography. The detective advised that there were computers at the home. He stated that he had not had the time to go through all this information. This interviewee met with somebody of the FBI. He stated that the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI would be involved in this case. The interviewee went to LCJ to interview suspect. Upon arrival, we were informed that the suspect was there. We spoke to him first. He described the suspect as being a loner. He stated that he has not seen... And there's a lot of redactions. It makes this almost impossible to read you every other word. He told him that he was en route to Miami. I gave this interview a letter he had received as a reply to a letter he wrote. The letter contained 2 pieces of paper. One was a handwritten letter signed by somebody stating that suspect was en route to China via Hawaii. This letter was written on a piece of paper, again, gung-ho traders. The other slip of paper contained in the letter was to somebody. It was a letter which pornographically described the suspect's genitals and thanked something. It appeared to be computer generated. The letter was signed by somebody, dated May 19, 1986. The other suspect refused to talk to any of the people. Suspect did speak to these interviewees, but only to give basic information to ask questions about the children. He did ask if the children had been seen by a doctor and if anything was found. He also asked where the children were. Several leads from other areas outside Tallahassee were given to the FBI. Agent, somebody also spoke with some other people. He is located in the New York area. Agents in the Gainesville area were also sent to interview people who had seen the suspects and children in the area recently. And we have heavy redactions here from this Metro PD document here. This interview was also advised by the FBI supervisor that they were going to secure a search warrant for the van and would be serving it to this date. This interview advised them of the materials that were in the TBD property. More leads to the Gainesville were given to the FBI. Also on this date, from the National Child Council came the TPD to assist this agency in any way. And looking through one of these publications, this interview felt that something redacted. This interview spoke with another interviewee from the Montgomery PD who advised that blank had seen the picture and stated that blank was also listed as having... they redacted so much of this stuff, guys. It's really hard to interpret anything. This interviewer also spoke with somebody of Marshall, California. He advised that he was blank. He stated that blank. He stated that he last saw somebody whose name is something approximately 5 years ago in Gainesville. He stated that he went to Gainesville to visit somebody else who was then living in a women's support cooperative. He stated that they lived in a rented house. He met 2 other women. Somebody stated that he was there for 48 hours and then he left. He realized that he had been very well manipulated and really knew little of what was going on in this person's life. Somebody stated that approximately 1 year ago, he and somebody else went to visit somebody in D.C., and he was living there at the time. He stated that they went to somewhere, knocked, and got no answer. Stated that as they were walking away, he turned around and saw someone looking out the window at him. The next day, they returned to the house. This time, someone came to the door and let them in, but refused to tell them anything about whoever they were looking for. Stated that he became extremely agitated and left. He stated that shortly thereafter, he received a letter from somebody saying that she had been in Miami acting like a rich person and that something had been talking to someone. Late that night, this interviewer was advised that a memo from somebody was given to ABC News in Washington and that it would be forwarded to this agency. As of this writing, the memo has not been read. All right. Support child abuse, Myers Park Drive, state of Florida. So this is just more reports. At the meeting, detective advised that no evidence of a satanic cult was found at either residence. He was concerned about information he received from 3 separate sources concerning the basement of the house. He indicated that there may have been a hole dug in the walls or the floor of a basement for unknown reasons. He stated that the reason for being in Tallahassee is blank. A list of known members of the finders was discussed. The commune became an attraction for local residents who would drive to the area to observe people living in plastic tents and conducting their activities in the nude. As the hippie movement diminished, Ragged Mountain Ranch also fell into obscurity. However, it came to the attention of the Virginia State Police Bureau of Criminal Investigation Arson Unit in 1980 following a fire which destroyed a residence and barn on the Ragged Mountain Ranch. This property had been occupied by somebody who alleged that they had been associates of subject somebody until a break in their relationship. They moved from Northern Virginia to Ragged Mountain Ranch. And again, Ragged Mountain, that name pops up in the finder's front companies, where they had blank. They alleged that blank burned them out following an argument over a division of real estate. And now this is probably Paula Arico. There was definitely some arguments over members of the finders about the money and about who owned what, because all of them just threw their money into the, what do they call it, the information bank. And they threw all their money into this one pot, like Robert Terrell told me that he did. He gave them his whole life savings, and that ended up causing problems later. Okay, there was a meeting that was billed as a discussion of various religions and philosophies. It was attended by individuals described by something as brilliant society dropouts who were probably former hippies. Somebody said he was introduced to the Finders organization, which he described as a cult. He said he joined not knowing all the activities and the philosophies of the cult. He said he came to learn that the cult was merely a front for something who converted the members' money to his own use. Something said he was given finders something. However, all he wants to do now is to get out of the organization and does not care how the money was spent. He feels that somebody used his money to purchase something. He said he does not believe the cult to use drugs, but they advocate free love and improvement of society. Finders operates out of a multi-apartment residence located here and uses telephone numbers here. He has used a number of bank accounts to hide the funds obtained from the group members. Now, this could be Marion Petty himself or Robert Terrell. Somebody is currently blank. However, they will not tolerate anyone leaving the cult. Somebody, probably Petty, feels his experience to the date with respect to the harassing letters and threats have all been related. No, okay, so this is the person who was trying to leave the cult, and he's saying he's being harassed. He also uses group members as enforcers to apply physical pressure as well as psychological pressure. He identified these individuals as redacted. Redacted is reputed to be something. Both individuals are violence prone. And so isn't this interesting? I mean, I went and sat down with Robert Terrell. This could be who they're talking about. Maybe Robert Terrell is he's a small guy, but maybe he's the one who's violence prone or he's psychological manipulating. But either way, here we are, 1987, 97, 2007, 2017, 2020, 33 years later, and we're still not getting the details of this. You know, because think about this. We're at February 3rd today. The Finders incident happened almost exactly 33 years ago. Related to an incident occurring in January 1993, which involved cult member Barbara Sylvester Matahea, who attempted to leave the group. She was physically restrained in something residence. Matahea subsequently became ill and required medical attention. They refused to allow her to obtain this attention, and she died on the premises. And we know this before. We've kind of known that there was a death, and Barbara Sylvester is seen as one of the original founders of the group, or at least one of the early members. Blank said he does not believe that there was any police investigation. Somebody came to Culpeper, Virginia, and leased an office on something. This space was to be used for a business to be known as the Finders, a consultant service available to the community, which would match clients and services and provide information and assistance. In addition, somebody also purchased a residence located here, which was used by them to temporarily house members of the cult. He said the business did not get started when he realized what Blank was doing to the cult members. As a result, Blank, however, continues to harass him for more money. Blank said Sherwood traveled to Panama in 1981 with unrecalled members of the cult. The purpose of the travel was to contact representatives of the offshore banking community to set up a newsletter communication service for that industry. Blank said he does not think the venture was successful. In this regard, it is noted that Sherwood or some other member of the cult initiated a Freedom of Information inquiry through the FBI following the trip. A copy of this page. So it's interesting. Why would the Finders file open records requests themselves? Maybe because they want to see what the FBI has available or what is being gathered. And here you can see here's more listing: the Finders Transnational, Ragged Mountain Research Center. These are all things that were been in my documentary, and we've been going at this for almost 2 hours now, guys. We're starting to wind down. Honestly, most of what I've seen here is stuff that I've already known elsewhere. It's more background, more details, and yeah, if you are a nerd for this stuff and you want to know more about it, it can be interesting. But so far, we're not finding anything completely, revealing or new that we haven't previously seen. For further information, Subject blank is a white male born approximately something hippie-style commune known as Ragged Mountain Ranch during the late 1960s. The location initially drew the interest of local police and military intelligence agencies due to the subject's alleged narcotic activities and his self-proclaimed connection with something. A number of surveillances were conducted jointly by Virginia State Police and the military intelligence. However, no arrest was made. They could be talking about Marion Petty right there. It is believed that, but I've never heard of him being involved with drugs. I don't know if you have, John. It is believed that Sherwood mailed the telecopy to Special Agent somebody following disclosure to her that something and reporting harassment by U.S. postal authorities and the FBI. She said a series of letters were sent and continued to be received by his associates and friends. All of the letters have impugned his reputation and intimated he was deceased or subtly threatened him with death. It is blank's belief that all the letters were authored by somebody, maybe Marion Petty, maybe Robert Terrell. Additionally, immediately after something, a small fire broke out in the residence owned by somebody. Arson investigators were unable to determine the origin of the fire and have closed their case. Blank is certain the fire is related to his conflict with the finders. And then it says, somebody identified the following individuals as current members of the finders, and they redacted that whole section right here. And maybe there's names that we hadn't previously seen, but we don't know. It's redacted. Blank is currently residing somewhere, attempting to avoid further contact with whoever is harassing him. As noted in referenced Airtelex, will not consider prosecution. Accordingly, Alexandria, Virginia is considering no further investigation, but furnishes the above background information to those divisions which may receive complaints. All right, lots of details here. And now we're looking again at the Washington Metro PD documents, and these might be previously unseen. This is Intelligence Division. These are interview reports. So interview of blank, and it says by E.C. Obenheim. We could probably find out who that is in the Intelligence Division unit. E.C. Obenheim. That might be whoever conducted this interview. Maybe they're alive still. Maybe they'd be willing to speak. That's how you do these investigations. You know, so if you guys want to open source this, start looking up E.C. Obenheim, who worked in the Intelligence Division of the Metro PD in the 1980s, and see if we can find him or her, and maybe they're willing to speak because they interviewed some people, and if there is more to tell than the story, they might be somebody to speak about it. On February 11th, 1987, an interview was conducted with somebody, white female, date of birth, place of birth, redacted, for the purpose of determining any knowledge she may have regarding sexual abuse or physical abuse of the finders involved with members of the organization identified as the finders. Blank is a member of the group. The predication for this interview is arrest of two members. Okay. Additionally, the purpose was to determine if any abuse of children neglect occurred in the D.C. area. Blank advised she joined the group in and described the group as an experimental community devoted to differing lifestyle alternatives. When asked who the parents are of the children taken into custody, she provided the following information, and that's heavily redacted, so we can't find any more information about that. And then it continues with a big redacted paragraph. Blank reiterated that Blank had driven to Kentucky to set up a retirement village called New Hope. The kids were going to be placed in a Montessori school. Now that's an interesting part, John, because if you're still there, I don't know if you're still tuned in, John, but to anybody else who doesn't know, the Glendale Montessori School is a whole other case involving child abuse. And, you know, of course, you guys know about the McMartin preschool case. These Montessori schools, they seem to be, I'm not going to say that all the Montessori schools are being used in child pornography, child trafficking, but the Glendale Montessori School, which John on We've Read the Documents YouTube channel, he talks with Henry Skip Clements, former FBI investigator, who talks all about that case, and you can find out more. So it's just interesting that they say the kids are going to be placed in a Montessori school. Other members of the finders joined the group, and she identified them as blank. Blank advised she knew all these people for a minimum of some amount of years and trusts all of them. She did not believe any of them would be involved in child abuse. She advised that various members of the group participated in group sex, but that they were careful that the children were not around. Most of the time, she said the children were in bed when it occurred. She said she has a bedroom listening device commonly put in infants' room to monitor them from other rooms. She advised that the mothers were going to Tallahassee that afternoon in an attempt to see their children. She stated she felt the children were generally well taken care of and that all the mothers loved them. She advised blank, who works at blank, lots of blanks. She advised she is something who works at somewhere in Arlington. Someone was urged to talk among the members of the group and attempt to identify the perpetrator of sexual abuse on something. She was provided with the above investigator's name and phone numbers if she had additional information. Detective somebody will attempt to re-interview her at a later date concerning this. I think this is Paula Arico, who was involved in a lawsuit against the Finders and who did speak out and say that she had no evidence. Because again, I want to reiterate, despite the fact that I do believe the Finders were involved in intelligence agencies and they were definitely seen to have been involved in trafficking children, interviews of the children, adult children, and interviews of ex-Finder members have not produced anybody that was involved in the group willing to say that those things are true. But as we've already shown here and shown elsewhere, we also know that the Finders were known for harassing lawyers and ex-members and obviously threatening them and trying to keep them within the group. And if this group is as connected as it seems, you would imagine people who were involved in this probably had some understanding of realizing, okay, like I probably should keep my mouth shut. They could be covering up for, their own purposes to just to keep quiet because they're afraid for their lives. I mean, that's a reality, right? So, but I do want to make it clear, there are no ex-members of the Finders and no adult children of the Finders who claim that there has been sexual abuse or trafficking. And that's just being real about it, all right? You may not like that, but that's what it is. And here we are. Here's another page, heavily redacted. Guys, we're getting down to the wire. We're at page 142 of 166, and I hope you guys are enjoying this. If you haven't thumbs up, please do thumbs up. Please share it if you want to go through it. This has been almost 2 hours, and I'm glad I did this. I don't see anything completely, mind-blowing or breaking, but it's important to dig through this stuff. On February 5th, 87, contact was made with somebody, a psychologist who has done extensive work at the Metro PD. I think that's probably Greenberg, requested that somebody review the inside rooms of the warehouse of the Finders, to which she agreed. At approximately 12 noon, somebody reviewed the rooms inside the warehouse and advised that she would need several days to think about what she observed. Several days. On February 11th, the writer contacted this person at the Crisis Intervention Center, and they were advised the following. She felt that the warehouse represented a circle within a circle. The library area and the living arrangements on the first level were the outer circle for outsiders to view, while on the surface would appear worldly and friendly. The inner circle revealed that what the group was about for the insiders, members in which they would exhibit their actual lifestyle. Blank advised that the leader of the group was possibly assisted by 2 other individuals, leaving all the rest of the members as followers. So again, that's kind of interesting. That's what I've said before, is that there's an inner circle and an outer circle in the way that they live. Not like the actual arrangement of the space, but there's all these people living there, but the inner circle is just like, oh yeah, we're this crazy cult and we have sex, group sex, and we play games and this and that. But then the inner circle, which says Marion Petty was possibly assisted by 2 other individuals. At least one of those individuals was obviously Robert Terrell, who told me he shared toothbrush with this man for 25 years. Blank stated that the leader of the group was not a mentally ill person. She felt that if anything, he was a brilliant person who shows antisocial behavior. She further felt that he elevated the woman to a domineering role in order to keep any male follower from possibly seizing control. She stated that the leader was exceptional in keeping the group together and engineering enough change from time to time to keep their interest. Blank will be provided with copies of excerpts of the writings of the Finders in order to help us establish a better understanding of the group. So that, I think, is probably pretty telling. This is a preliminary report from a psychologist from the Metro PD dated February 13, 1987. And again, this is after February 13th. By February 10th, the news was already reporting that, oh, there's nothing to see here. It's all blown out of water. It was a mistake. But the Metro PD psychologist is saying that they think there's 2 layers to the group. There's at least 2 levels, an inner circle and outer circle, right? So that confirms what many of us have already felt. In closing, Blank stated that he felt the only difference between the group is the alternative lifestyle they choose. It is the opinion of the writer that Blank still have contact with the Finders, and that it is the possible defense against, namely that the children were in care of social services in the past when they were criminally assaulted. A check with Detective Youth Services revealed that on at least one occasion, Blank, the children in question, were in the care of social services. So there might have been past incidents with the children involving them getting taken to social services in D.C., so this might not have been the very first time that the children involved with the Finders were taken into custody. Now we're looking at Metro PD Investigative File Report, Intelligence Division, Detective Redacted. This page is very heavily redacted. February 9th, and you can't even read anything from here. On January 5th, 1987, Redacted drove straight to Berea, Kentucky, blank, according to blank. I mean, they really still, and this whole page is blank here. Interview with somebody. She is long blank sentence. She describes him as a peripheral member of the group. The lady is very matter of fact, and she says that she has no problem with the people that blank. Her feelings are that the group of which she is a member is somewhat unorthodox, but certainly not child abusers or child molesters. She states that she has never seen or been told of any types of sexual activity between the adults and the children. Her absence is explained by her as blank. Blank is there also. She is a member of the group. The lady feels that all of this is an attempt to harass the group because of the way that they live. She was served a subpoena for something witnessed by Special Agent something of the FBI. On October, now, so this is, we're going to fast forward a little bit, October 22nd, 1991. So this is 3.5 years after the original investigation to the finders and 2 years before the Department of Justice investigation. And it says, report, possible child pornography. October 22nd, 1991. The undersigned received a telephone call from Officer Blank of the 5th District Uniform Midnight Section, home telephone number. Officer Blank advised that he and 2 footmen have observed activities which they believe is suspicious. The officers have observed numerous well-dressed males who operate rental cars and expensive luxury-type models enter the building located at somewhere at late and early morning hours. The subject and their vehicles do not fit the area which the building is located, namely the market area of northeastern D.C. On at least one occasion, the officers have observed adult males with young male child enter the building. This occurred after the midnight section had reported for duty on the street. So think about this. This is 1991, a couple of years after the investigation into the finders is closed. Somebody in the D.C. Police Department files a report for child pornography, witnessing well-dressed men and expensive luxury cars entering the finder's warehouse late at night. And we know it's the finder's warehouse because it was the market area of Northeast, and that's where it was located. And they're saying that they've seen them enter the building with young male boys. On another occasion, somebody stopped a van after it was observed leaving the building in the early morning hours. The van displayed tags which were not listed to a van. The operator identified himself as somebody. He told the officer that he did research stuff. He also stated that he babysat children for diplomats. Now that's the interesting point. Now I can say it. John, you were telling me about this, and here it is on page 147. Something that could be interesting, could be something we don't know about before, but this is something I've never seen before. The D.C. police filed a report in 1991, nearly 4 years after the original investigation to the finders and 2 years before the Department of Justice, claiming that they're seeing well-dressed men enter the warehouse late at night with young boys, and when they stopped one of them, he claims that they babysat the children for diplomats. And of course, a diplomat is somebody who works for a government in a position they do diplomatic missions. They go meet with other officials and things like that. And apparently these men that are well-dressed and leaving vans from an area that might be and more than likely is the finder's warehouse, which is why it's in this file, claim that they babysit children for diplomats. And you can make of that what you will. Officer Blank advised that the undersigned that the building in the neighborhood is not fit for babysitting activity, especially after midnight. The subject story was very suspicious to Officer Blank. The van is listed to somebody, white male, somebody. The vehicle is described as redacted. Officer somebody advised that to the best of his recollection, this building is the same building which was raided by the police approximately blank years ago, but we know, for some type of child pornography. So think about that. Whoever this detective is, which there's no way to know because there's nothing listed here that would indicate who this somebody in the intelligence division as of the 1990s. We could look that up. We could probably go back and try to find who were detectives involved in the intelligence agency, an intelligence division of the Metro PD, but that would be very difficult to identify as one officer. Let me see if we can get anything. There's some signatures on the side, but we can't really. There's JS, that could be John Stitcher. Now, this is interesting. John Brissom, if you're still in the chat, man, look at this. So this is the part you were telling me about, that there's a part that discusses these men leaving the finder's warehouse claiming that they babysat children for diplomats. And they mentioned that this is the same warehouse that was raided approximately blank years ago, but of course we know it's the finders. And it's signed over here by detective, but the signature is covered up. And over here it says, maybe it says captain on the side, October, sergeant something. But over here to the side, there's a signature that says JS. I mean, at least that's what I'm reading. And we know Sergeant John Stitcher. What I would need to know, if anybody who wants to do this date is October 22nd, 1991. Look this up. I don't want to do this in real time, and I want to get through the documents. But Sergeant John Stitcher worked for the Metro PD, and he died sometime between the original finders investigation in 1987 and the Department of Justice investigation to CIA involvement in 1993. If this is Sergeant John Stitcher, this means that he was alive at this point, and this could indicate that, you know, that it popped up again. All of a sudden the finders pop up again. People start asking questions. And one way or another, Sergeant John Stitcher is dead by the time the actual Department of Justice investigation began. So that, to me, right here, this is a section. There's been a couple of other points, and I want to remind you guys, if you haven't subscribed, if you're not subscribed, do subscribe. Bookmark theconsciousresistance.com. Give us a thumbs up and all that good stuff. But we've been doing this for almost 2 hours now. We're starting to wrap up. There's been a couple of interesting points here. Most of this has been rehashing the previously seen details. I might cut just this section out here into a single video so you guys can share this one section if anybody wants to dig into this. Somebody was reporting that that they found a van with men leaving late at night in a really shady area, seen with kids coming in and out of the warehouse late at night, and they claim that they were babysitting for diplomats. Now, that's a weird-ass story if I've ever seen one. But that was in 1991. So that's the only time I've seen that story pop up. The only other things I've seen related to the finders have been 1987 and 1993. All right, so here we go. A little bit more. We're down to the last 20 pages. Intelligence Division, February 17th, 87. Interview with somebody, blank, responded to the residents of the above listed couple to interview them regarding any contact they have had with the finders. Myself, of the FBI, responded to the address listed above. We interviewed the couple, and I learned that they had only met several of the group, and this was on 2 or 3 occasions while they were having picnics for the blank. They recall that in 1985, they received a call from Diane Sherwood. She requested information regarding the schooling practices of their group. She was advised that to come to one of the meetings and speak firsthand to the homeschooling individuals. In blank, 3 women blank came to one of the gatherings. There was another child at the gathering. These people mingled with other folks, asked questions related to home education and associated problems. So this seems like somebody was just checking out the group and said, hey, I called them actually at one point and I wanted to get involved, and I checked them out. I wanted to see what their homeschooling was about, and maybe they decided not to join. The next contact with any members of the group occurred on blank. This was another impromptu gathering attended by 2 women, 1 man, and 2 small children. The kids were redacted. The women were redacted. The identity of the man was unknown. He was described as medium height, dark complexion, black curly hair, white male, and slim. There was another meeting attended by somebody along with somebody else who looked somewhat disheveled, and another child who was unknown to the couple. During the 3 meetings, all informal, the couple stated that they found nothing unusual about the women, and the children seemed to be in good health. They went on to say that they had no other contact with these people and never heard any further from them. The interview took place in the home of the couple, and they appeared to be very forthright. They were advised to give us a call. So this is just an interview with a couple who claimed to have, contacted the finders in relation to homeschooling, and they say, hey, look, we talked to them, nothing to see here, and that's what we found. Because what you got to understand is when this thing first happened, people were calling the FBI from all over the country, claiming, oh, I used to work with them, or I knew this guy, or those might be my kids. And so they interviewed all kinds of people, and these are some of those background interviews. Myself and Detective somebody responded to the above address to interview the above-named couple. They had apparently contacted Detective Blank and had expressed a wish to speak to the authorities regarding this matter. Somebody appeared to be well-spoken, articulate, who discussed his relationship. He spoke for some time, explaining that Blank had been involved with assisting the homeless and the group living for at least 15 years. He told us that his feeling was that these people were a commune type with a very hard-working type of work ethic. He went on to say that they have in the past shown that they are willing to work at any project for the benefit of the group, and that he has seen them take payment ranging from cash to potatoes for their work. He feels that they do have a somewhat bizarre lifestyle, and they tend to play games upon themselves as well as others. He and Blank both felt that they were not in any way involved in child abuse and devil worship. They gave us background regarding the blank and the fact that they had not gotten along since blank. He had said, blah, blah, blah. Now, look, I want to say this. These could be genuine people who maybe did know the Finders and decided, you know what, like, hey, the Finders, you remember that couple? We went and talked to them about homeschooling. Well, they're being accused of trafficking kids and Satanism. Let's go talk to the FBI and let them know that, there's nothing to see here and that was not our experience. That could be genuine. That could genuinely be people who met the Finders. I've been emailed by people who told me that they attended some of the Finders parties over the years and things like that. So this could be genuine. And at the same time, this could be another one of the Finders games. Imagine how many members they have that they could send in some of their members, hey, contact the FBI and tell them, that everything's cool and that there's nothing to our group. It's hard to know because of the nature of the group. Blank says that some of the family's game playing is to send letters of a harassing nature to certain people. He says that they have in the past also sent letters to employers of these people. The lifestyle that Blank depicts is such that these games are what the Finders are all about, if you believe him. He says that there is no time limit to them and that money is no object. He went on to describe some of these, such as sending 2 of the group to Hawaii to fend for themselves with no money or no return tickets. They were to obtain lodging and earn enough money to come back to Washington on their own. He went on to say that their expertise in computers has occurred over the last 4 or 5 years and that they were not as sophisticated in this field as we believe. Information is their game. They are great gatherers of information, and it is apparent that the computers will enable them to store more of this information at a much faster rate. Him and Blank both feel that the child raising techniques are not what they themselves would consider proper, but that they feel but that these people would not do anything to harm the children. They had kids at home with midwives, etc. They work to obtain funds to operate. They don't like long-term employment jobs. He repeats that the behavior of the group is bizarre, but doesn't feel that they would injure the children in any way. I asked about their mental health. He stated that it was a judgment call in regard to that. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is the Conscious Resistance Network. My name is Derrick Broze, and you are listening to our breakdown live of the new document dump from the FBI Finders documents. We're just about 10 pages towards the end. I appreciate everybody who's been tuned in. This is one of my longest videos. I'm just going to be frank. I don't like long videos. I don't like long breakdowns. I don't like watching them. I don't like doing them. But for this, I think it's worth to do. And I hope that those of you who are watching later, if you make it this far into the video, that you appreciate the content. And if you do so, please do go ahead whenever you get a chance and watch the Finders documentary, Who Will Find What the Finders Hide, if you have not yet seen our full documentary. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel and our website, theconsciousresistance.com. I appreciate everybody who does that. So I'm going to go back now. I'm just checking through the comments real quick, and I will be going through all the comments as we wrap this up. And I appreciate John Brisson of We've Read the Documents for bringing this to my attention. And John, we did get to that crucial point of talking about the diplomats, and I appreciate you giving me that interview. John says, I'm here. Henry Clements told me this in my interview, but I had no proof of it. So, yeah. And now we have proof of it, that there was this 1991 incident where they were basically, going through the files and claiming that the Finders were babysitting diplomats' kids and babysitting them late at night. I mean, this is just a weird story, guys. It's really getting more trippy as time goes on. But all right, thank you guys again for listening. Thumbs up this video. We're at 144 likes. Let's keep getting those thumbs up there. Share this out if you haven't. We're down to the last couple minutes. Let's continue our deep dive into the new documents from the Finders released by the FBI. They told us that they were available at any time to assist with any information they could, and that it had been their experience over blank that this group was bizarre, even to other groups, due to their refusal to offer any explanation for their lifestyle. He says they are like the FBI and that they obtain information without disseminating any. Interesting. So again, just more of this kind of intelligence references, that they are some kind of information gathering outfit. And I want to refer people back to the original first FBI document dumps, where, again, probably the most hard-hitting part of these documents has been the declassified summary from the Washington Metro PD that says that it was clearly covered up by the FBI or the CIA and the FCIA, and that they were definitely some sort of disinformation gathering source for intelligence agencies, at the least. I asked about the type of work that they would do, and he replied that nothing was beyond them. He said that some of them have worked for very powerful individuals over the years, and that they have also been known to clean walks and do gardening for just food. Now we've got Metro PD intra-department routing slip. I think this is just administrative type stuff here. Okay, Metro PD finders running resume, domestic security. On February 12, 1987, somebody of the Intelligence Division interviewed somebody, stated that she was familiar with the Finders cult, that she was first introduced to them, stated that she was first. I mean, this is just so heavily redacted. She was given a room by the Finders, and during the night she was summoned to the attic by one of the female members of the cult for the purposes of engaging in sex with somebody. On another instance, Blank stated that she spent the night at the warehouse and was subjected to watching sexual intercourse between this person and male members of the cult. Blank stated that when she broke away from the cult, she got the impression that the cult members didn't like children as something blank, 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 blank. Stated that after she broke away from the cult, blank, and attempted to blank. After somebody told somebody else they could not something, she received a call from somebody who alleged to her that if she did not give up, she would be burned out. Blank stated that 1 week before the fire at their home, she was visited by somebody, Finders Group, called the Community in Virginia, again warning her to give up something to the Finders, stated that Blank was burned down. And so this definitely seems, again, that they go after people. People who've tried to come out and either leave the group or just like, all right, I don't want to get involved with these weirdos. They're, literally talking about burning people's properties down, and that's what I've gathered. It seems like somebody had a fire on their property or their house, and it was an arson that was investigated, and they believe it was probably related to the Finders. Says property in Virginia to collect insurance money for Blank. Also stated that she was told that Blank prevented Barbara Sylvester from receiving medical care. That's what we talked about earlier. Diane Sherwood, Barbara Sylvester, that she was dying from a ruptured appendix, and she subsequently died at the land because of complications. Lastly, Blank stated that she could identify other members of the cult and would testify if needed concerning the Finders' activity. The identified members are as follows, and of course that's redacted. On February 12, 1987, Detective Blank interviewed somebody else who stated that she first met the Finders. Okay, this might just be a repeat. By a mutual friend who had known the Finders for several years. She stated that she had bad feelings about somebody because he asked questions about something insurance policy and had women serving him like a lord. Blank stated that she never returned to the house. So again, these are just different interviews with a lot of different people. These might have been people who visited the Finders farms one time and were like, fuck these weirdos, I'm never going back, to other people who were deeply involved. And this is giving us some more context to what the FBI has had for years. And based on this information, they claimed, oh, well, yeah, they're a weird group, but there's nothing to see here. February 1987, detective somebody interviewed somebody else of the U.S. Department of Agriculture who stated that Blank worked for the agency as a freelance computer processor. So there you go. That's something we hadn't seen. Somebody who they redacted had worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, another government connection, as a freelance computer processor. And Blank stated that somebody had full access to the computer terminal information at the office of the USDA, but they didn't feel this information critical. Detective somebody placed a call to the Inspector General's Office of Agriculture to advise them of what had transpired and of a potential security breach. So this sounds like the Finders. They're getting themselves ingrained into the government and to intelligence, the USDA. I mean, they're just looking for all kinds of information. And it goes back to the story that Marion Petty was he claims that after he left the intelligence, the naval intelligence, that he just became a chauffeur for all the head generals and stuff like that. But more than likely, he, as I said in my documentary, he became what is known as a NOC, a non-official undercover, somebody who has a mission, in this case, gathering information, spreading disinformation, possibly trafficking children, things of this sort, for the CIA or for some other intelligence agency. And part of that was for them to infiltrate as many different organizations as possible. And another interview here, February 12, 1987, detective interviews somebody else of San Francisco, California. They had spoke with this person on February 11th, and somebody was versed in a cult calling themselves the Rainbow Nation. I never heard that name, so that could be another point of interest if somebody wants to research that. I don't think that's the Rainbow Gathering or anything like that, but we know that a lot of the hippies over the years have called themselves the Rainbow Family, and stuff like that. and was versed in a cult calling themselves the Rainbow Nation that uses children in their practices. Somebody stated that he believed that the finders are loosely associated with this organization and supplied the names of some people. Somebody stated he would send detectives a copy of this catalog listing cult members to see if it is related to the finders. Another interview, detectives spoke with Detective Somebody of the LAPD, who related that somebody, a white male, had a criminal history and redacted, for which he received redacted. So somebody in the finders has a criminal history in California, and it's being covered up, at least here. Detective Blank also stated he received an alias for one of the names given by somebody who had a something. However, somebody stated that the additional biographical information is needed to confirm the identity of the subjects. Another interview on February 12th, 87, detective interviews somebody who states that he has been counseling somebody, and parents of someone confirmed that he had received nude photographs of somebody and received letters describing sexual acts performed by somebody with various members of the cult. This person stated that he has tried to convince somebody to come forth and assist the police in this matter, but stated that they believe they can extricate themselves from the cult, which they believe is fruitless. Somebody stated he will again try to have them come forward to assist this instant investigation, and he will contact us as to his progress. Now, what I think this is referring to is, I remember reading that there were reports that the members of the finders, they would harass the family members of the people who are involved. So they might say you join the finders and you talk about leaving or whatever. They would send your family pictures of you having sex with people and things like that. And I guess they're just trying to freak people's families out and gross them out, but also maybe it's sort of an indirect way to threaten you and say, look, we got all kinds of info on you, and if you mess with us, we'll send this to your family, and we'll kind of expose you. We got another MPD investigative file. The attached reports were furnished by somebody and contained background information on the finders and its members. On February 6th, the undersigned contacted the D.C. Bureau of Vital Statistics in conjunction with the reference made in the attached reports to the death of Barbara Sylvester Matea. Of that, office reports that she can find no record for Matea's death on the date reported. Somebody was also furnished the names of the five of the children from the Florida incident, along with their dates of birth, in an attempt to determine if they were born in D.C. Results will be reported when they are received. All right, we're down to the wire here. MPD investigative file report, domestic security, telephone interview of somebody else on February 9th. During the course of the interviews with somebody, it was ascertained that something and someone and his currently living, since it appeared that blank had left the group, an effort was made to contact her for an interview to determine whether she might have information. On February 9th, a call was placed to somebody and advised that she was the babysitter and that some people were not at home. A message was left for either of them to contact the intelligence division. Another call was placed to somebody who identified herself as whoever, advised that both parties were not at home. She was advised of the nature of the call, and she stated that she would relay the message. On February 10th, somebody contacted the intelligence division and advised the following. He stated that he was something and was quite aware of the group, the finders. He stated that blank had been a member of the group for approximately some amount of years, and that she returned to something approximately something. When she came home, she was accompanied by somebody, stated that the reason she was leaving the group, 60 to 40% to leave, was due to the fact that the women had less rights than the men, and that also she was concerned what would happen to the blank care while she was in the group. I'm guessing that says what would happen to the children. Somebody advised that over the last months, years, he has spent weekends with the group, approximately a certain amount of days per year. When asked questions regarding the possibility of sexual abuse of the two children, blank advised that blank indicated that occurred while they were under the care of social services from a previous incident. So what they're saying is, they're trying to say, and this is the first time I've heard this argument, John. It says that some members of the finders or former members were saying that the sexual abuse of the kids actually happened while they were under the care of social services from a previous incident. So what they're saying is that although the finders were arrested in February 87 and that the Tallahassee police found evidence of sexual abuse, that it wasn't actually the finders who abused the kids, that the kids were abused while they had been taken by social services from some other previous incident, because obviously people have been calling the cops about the finders for some time, And there's some other record out there that exists that we don't have that shows that the kids were taken into state custody at some point, and the finders are claiming that's when the sexual assault happened. Note, no names were mentioned to him of the children that were assaulted. He also stated that the mothers were either in San Francisco or en route back to Washington, D.C. And it was interesting because it says sexual abuse of two of the children, which would be John Paul and Mary, So I think that what they're trying to say is that this man was not, whoever they're speaking to, was not given the names of the kids, but he was apparently able to name the names of the kids that were abused. So that could lend some credibility that, hey, maybe they had already been abused. Either way, it's showing you that these kids were not being well taken care of if the state had to come in a previous time to take them away. All right, so we're down here, the last 5 pages, guys. Intelligence investigative file report from the Washington PD, Detective somebody on February 20th. So this is an important day, February 20th, because by this point, the public has already been told that the whole thing was over, that there's nothing to see here. It was blown out of water, blown out of proportion, and there's nothing there. So what are they saying privately? February 19th, 1987, Detective somebody contacts somebody of that concerning a listing of her name contained in the finder's record. They seemed very upset that the police were contacting her, and the detective assured her that our only interest was that her name and the information about her children were in the files. They stated that she needed a babysitter and contacted Georgetown University for a referral. Blank stated that she was given the name of somebody and interviewed her telephonically. Blank stated that she would have hired someone, but she never showed up for an interview. Detective assured her that she was in no danger and that the investigation was continuing and that the police department was still going through computer information and vast amounts of information, and if her name surfaced again, she would be re-interviewed. Blank asked that what would have happened if the finders got into her residence, and Detective Blank told her that he was unsure of any motives and that anything would be speculative. So it's interesting to note here, though, that whoever this person is says that they were looking for a babysitter, and so they contacted Georgetown University for whatever reason. I don't know who the hell calls a college for a referral. Maybe it was a college student, so they contacted them looking for student services. That could be something. But again, Georgetown University is known for CIA, for lots of intelligence people going through there. So it's just interesting that somebody calls Georgetown University looking for a referral, and they refer to somebody from the finders. And then she's worried about what would have happened to her kid if they had come babysit. On February 20th, 1987, Detective Blank was contacted by somebody who stated that she was a freelance writer and that she was going to write a story for the Washington Post on Sunday concerning her involvement with the finders. Blank attempted to interview Detective and was given the number and name of Captain somebody, PIO Detective, specifically requested Public Information Officer Detective specifically requested that any information concerning the interview with her not be used as it was an ongoing investigation. Somebody stated that she was going to write an article from the point of a mother who was duped into believing a representative of the finders, who stated she was from Georgetown University and working from within that framework. So there you go. That whole thing was probably fake. The finders weren't even, the referral number she got wasn't even probably from somebody from Georgetown University. It was the finders, because we do know that the finders would put out ads everywhere. Are you looking for a babysitter? Are you looking for this? And this might have been a way for them to get access to kids or to just gather information on people, or both. Blank stated she was going to use Detective somebody's name, and Detective requested that she did not. Captain somebody else, Public Information Officer, notified 1200. Sergeant Stitcher notified. It's cut off right there. And, for me, I'm always looking for information on Sergeant Stitcher because, like I said, this guy died, and he was one of the people who claimed that there was a cover-up going on. We have very little information about what happened to him. Interview with somebody. On this date, Detective Blank interviewed a former member of the Finders cult. They stated they had been affiliated with the Finders for some amount of time and stated that he believed the Finders to be overeducated fools who sought out a man such as Petty to find some type of identity. He stated he felt that Petty was a genius who held extremely strong hold of the members of the cult by promising them sexual gratification, power, and money. Blank stated that Petty was trained as a blank, 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 and one can only imagine that's probably the intelligence connections right there. As to the personalities of the members of the Finders, Blank stated that Blank was a homosexual and a former abused child. He also believed that if any of the children were abused, that Blank would be a prime suspect. Interesting there. He stated that somebody was the former enforcer of the group and is associated with somebody else or something else at the time. He believed that the finders are attempting to destroy that he identified as blank. I mean, there's just so much redacted here, guys. This just shows you that we still do not know the full story of this. He also stated that the finders cut the tires of blank vehicle during, and that's what we've heard. We've heard that when people were investigating the finders and when lawyers were trying to help members get out of the cult, that they were slashing the lawyers' tires and threatening them and things like that. Metro PD investigative file report right here. Other officers, Sergeant John Stitcher. Information received by the informant. On blank, received a letter at her home address, blank. The letter was postmarked something, and the return address was something, the address of the finders. The letter attached hereto was, and it's heavily redacted. Lots of redactions here. More redactions. In closing, questions to blank, he stated that he knew nothing about sexual abuse towards somebody. He felt that they were in excellent health and well-being. Nor did he know of any type of abuse or neglect on any of the children. He stated that he left the Radio Shack computer in the phone booth while checking email in Tallahassee using the MCI system and simply forgot the system and forgot the machine. And this is, of course, about the report where some student at the Florida University found this computer just sitting in a phone booth, and they found it and they realized it was connected to the finders. Maybe somebody left it there on purpose to try to reveal information. Maybe it really was left on accident. Seems a little unlikely. And here we go, another heavily redacted report on February 1st, 1987. A couple of blank paragraphs. February 4th, Wednesday, the adults decided to split up for a day or so. Lots of blank paragraphs. Had left a message about the D.C. police coming by the house on blank, and Tallahassee police contacting him by phone. Note, blank did state that the reason they did not go to the Tallahassee police was due to the fact that the type of harassment was common and that they felt they would not be able to resolve the issue. Later that day, blank, while blank, in the later part of the day, they called somebody who told them what had happened. Again, somebody stated they did nothing due to the history of harassment. But when pressed for examples, he could not give any. More blank redactions. And this whole page right here, big redaction. According to somebody, big redaction. Once in Berea, somebody attempted to get the children to the school but were unable to. They decided then, due to the cold weather, to take the children to Florida and receive permission from the mothers to go on the trip. The subjects drove 6 children around the middle of January 8th. They stayed at somewhere in Archer, Florida. Approximately 1 week later, on January 27th, they were joined in Archer by somebody. These subjects drove down to Florida in 2 vehicles. On January 28th, they drove down to Ocala, Florida, and returned later in the evening. On the morning of January 29th, something loaded up the 2 vans with the kids while somebody headed west towards Texas. The vans headed southeast to Juniper Springs Campground in Ocala National Forest and spent 3 nights at the location. During the day hours, some of the men went to Ocala to work while the others stayed with the kids. According to blank, they occupied 2 campsites, and they also stated that they visited with an Irving Fisk in Ocala. Interview with somebody, reference to Florida trip with the kids, redacted, since the interview was conducted to determine the facts and not about, okay. I think we're done here, guys. I think that's pretty much it. These are more interviews, but they're all redacted. At February 6th, the writer conducted an interview with somebody. Somebody was asked to relate his knowledge to the people who were conducting business on the premises. He stated that he had been in the business on the block for about and had noticed the people at there shortly after he opened. He states that there are 4 or 5 white males who he could see there regularly. Sometimes there would be others, but mainly it was just 4 or 5. At one point, he got into discussion with one of the regular suspects who told him that blank. He also stated that on several occasions he had seen 2 white children who he stated always appeared ragged and dirty. On some of these occasions, he had noticed that the children were accompanied by 2 women, both white. He stated that he would be able to recognize photographs of the children and the other persons, but that blank. And that is the end, guys. 166 pages we just went through. And, lots to dig into, huh? This has been quite a exhaustive look at these documents. I will post the link in the comments below, as well as in the chat. I think John probably posted a link already a couple times, but for those who want to see them themselves, you can do so. I hope you guys are enjoying the chat, commenting to each other. I hope that you guys we're able to gather some information from what I put together. And I'm looking at the comments now, checking out the comments. You guys are all over the place with these comments. I think I've seen some supposed letters from the Rothschilds about something like this. All right, you guys are all over the place with your comments. If there's nothing else, man, I'm gonna chill out and cut this video. Like I said, I have a couple more videos that I'll be putting out over the next 2 days. I'll have some time to work on new videos. But this has been a deep dive into the recently released, within the last day or so, second FBI files. And again, when these files first came out on the FBI website, they were listed as 1 of 1, and now we have 2 of 2. So are there more? Will we get another random release from the FBI? Another couple hundred pages? The first release was 324 pages. This release is 166 pages. They might be going through more pages and releasing it. Why are they doing these right now? We don't know. We don't know. And this is a rabbit hole. This is definitely a rabbit hole. I think it doesn't have a clear end. I feel confident that what I've already put together with the Finders documentary has basically already told the most important story. Like I said, I might do an update on the Finders. It'll be a short 15-minute to 20-minute documentary style, like my documentary, Who Will Find What the Finders Hide. But what I can say, guys, is what I think is most important, just to recap in what we just read, is the fact that in 1991, there was other reports. So you have the initial 1987 investigation. You have the 1993 investigation by the Department of Justice, which looked into the CIA claims and said there was nothing to see here. But apparently in 1991, somebody else was making reports that they were seeing well-dressed men and vans leaving the Finders warehouse with children late at night. And they told the cops that they were babysitting the children of diplomats. That's some weird shit. That's just, I don't know. Obviously, it's a crazy explanation, but why did the cops not look into it further? Did they? I don't know. And again, I think that Sergeant John Stitcher was probably killed some way or another because he knew what was going on, because he claimed that there was a cover-up. We also have Scott Hunt of the Tallahassee Police Department, who's still alive and out there, and I have been unable to contact him and to get him to speak out. And we have Ramon Martinez, who is the customs agent, who is basically afraid to talk. But my point here is that there are people who are still alive who could expose this if they chose to speak out. And there are people who helped cover it up who are still alive and who are, who need to be exposed. And the only way to do that is to take the time to dive deep into this. Yes, it's a rabbit hole, I think, that can lead places. It's not one that I'm going to, it's not the hill I'm going to die on. I definitely think that I'm thankful that I went into the Finders and that I've been able to expose what I have and work with other researchers who've been on this. I don't think we're ever going to get to the full story of what exactly happened with the Finders. I think we're about as close to the truth as we're ever going to get, and that is this. The Finders were an intelligence operation with connections to the CIA, with connections to the FBI. They were involved in trafficking of children. They were involved in probably taking naked pictures of kids. They might have been distributing this information using the high-tech equipment they had in the late 80s. We know that they traveled to places all around the world. They might, there was apparently instructions on buying children. We know that the media helped cover it up. We know that the Metro PD, that publicly they stated there was nothing to see here, but that the Metro PD private documents made it clear that this was the case. We also know that people in the Tallahassee Police Department tried to speak out. People in the Metro PD tried to speak out. People in the U.S. Customs agent tried to speak out. And it was all covered up. So this is where we're at. This is where we're at with this case. And I think I've said everything I can say on the Finders. For those who haven't gone through every detail, and I mean it, like I've done 7 to 8 part investigation before I even put out my documentary, as I was making the documentary, because I was advised that I should make my information public just in case something happens to me or whatever. So if you haven't seen those, go to our Finders playlist, look up the Finders investigation part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you can see all the weird details, including where did I get the name for my documentary, Who Will Find What the Finders Hide. That's video number 7 in that investigation, and that's another weird rabbit hole. And by the way, all those videos that I show in that video are now deleted. They don't exist anymore. They're not on the internet. So I've been able to gather lots of information. We've interviewed John Brisson. I released the full interview with Finders member Robert Terrell. We released the documentary. I mean, I think I've pretty much conclusively covered everything there is to cover with the Finders for the moment. And Focusing on other things, for those who are unaware, my next documentary will be coming out on February 10th. It's called The 5G Trojan Horse. Obviously, I'm focusing on a bit of a different topic. But this is what I'm doing, guys. If you want to help continue to support my work, you can support me at patreon.com/Derrick Broze. I'll post that link there. And all the money goes towards not funding my lavish lifestyle, which I don't have, but to funding these documentary projects. You guys, the contributors, helped me fund the Finders documentary, and you guys, the contributors, are helping me fund the 5G documentary, which will be coming out as well. So for now, I'm going to leave the Finders where it's at. I'm going to continue to try to track down some of these ex-members and see if they're willing to give interviews. I've tried to find Robert Terrell again and see if he's willing to talk to me again now that we know a lot more information about the case, and I know for a fact that he was lying to me, and I would like to confront him about that to his face and give him a chance to respond. But other than that, I think I'm going to leave the Finders where they are. If there is a new FBI document dump, we'll go over that. We'll cover it. But until that point, I think I've covered everything that there is to cover. Yes, I've read Robert Terrell's book on the Finders. When I was at his little apartment or his attic, I tried to get him to give me a copy, and he wouldn't give me a copy. But it's all available online. You can find that. And I'm just going to remind you guys once more, our website is theconsciousresistance.com. If you've never visited our site, check it out. We just did a redesign, upgrade. It looks all fancy and nice. We have the Conscious Resistance Network where you can join, you can plug in with other people, you can message each other, you can create groups, create a profile, and it's not Facebook. If you want to buy t-shirts, I've got new t-shirt designs. You can support us there. If you want to see where I'm going to be speaking out, check out the tour page. If you'd like to see our podcast, you can do that. Check out our documentaries, download and buy my books, including my newest book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State. And that is it, guys. I'm exhausted. I'm tired of talking. And until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.